Chapter 296. Holly tightened his grip on the phone. His eyes were cold and his voice was filled with anger. Damn it. How could George do such a thing? Is Suzaku negotiating with him now? Where are they? I want to ask him face to face why he betrayed the family and the company. He's at the Keynesian Hotel. Holly, I hope you can calm down. Don't be impulsive. Suzaku had a hard time convincing him to confess. I know. Don't worry, Shin. Thank you for telling me this. I won't let anyone who betrays the company off. After ending the call, Holly hung up the phone angrily. Damn it. I knew that bastard George was unreliable. Holly grabbed his coat from the hanger and kissed Shui Ruin's forehead. I'm going out. I can't have dinner with you. Shui Ruin held his hand worriedly. Darling, don't worry. Maybe Mika Keto is lying to you. She's trying to make you panic. Holly said coldly. I have my suspicions too. That's why I have to go there personally to see if George has confessed. Be careful. Shui Ruin didn't say anything else and walked him to the door. Holly sped all the way. When he arrived at the hotel, Mika Keto was already standing on the lawn in front of the hotel. He was wearing a black suit and stood tall and straight. Under the bright lights, he was as dazzling as a god in the night. Shen, why are you here? Holly walked quickly to him. Mika Keto smiled. I'm worried that you'll be too impulsive and mess things up. Holly smiled embarrassedly. You know me best. Let's go in. Mika Keto grabbed his arm. Don't be hasty. Suzaku had a hard time convincing George and promised him that she wouldn't hold him responsible. Only then did he agree to tell us the names of the others. If we go in now, he won't be willing to give up the names of the others. Holly tried to suppress the restlessness in his heart and smiled. Then what do you think we should do? Mika Keto pointed at the glass window not far away. Look there. No wonder he was standing here. As long as he turned a little, he could see the hotel lobby through the glass window. Vermilion Bird and George were sitting by the window, facing each other. Although he couldn't hear what they were saying, he could clearly see the serious expressions on their faces. In the hotel lobby, Suzaku and George sat facing each other. George's face was solemn, and even his habitual smile had disappeared. He asked in a deep voice, Who are you? Suzaku said coldly, It doesn't matter who I am. What's important is that my gun is pointed at your chest right now. Let me ask you, did you work with the thieves to steal QXL's auction item and sell it to Franklin through Jamie to make a huge profit? In the past few days of investigation, they found that QXL had been visited by thieves who stole a large number of auction items at once. Under the table, Suzaku held a gun in one hand and aimed it at George's chest. However, the people standing outside the glass window didn't see it. George's eyes widened. How did you know? Before Jamie died, he already gave you up. He also said that Holly was behind all this. If you're willing to stand up and testify against Holly, I can spare your life. George was silent for a moment. Do you think I'll believe you just because you say that? I won't betray Holly. Suzaku smiled. George, I really admire you. For Holly, you're willing to bear the crime of betraying your family. But you didn't expect that in order to protect yourself, Holly planned to push all the blame to you. No, that's impossible. Suzaku pointed out the window. Look outside. You must know the man standing with Holly. Holly and Mika Keto are here to testify against you. On the other side, Holly was getting impatient. Although he could see their expressions, he couldn't hear their conversation. He shook his head and said, No, I'd better go in and take a look. I want to hear George say the names of those traitors in person. Mika Keto patted him on the shoulder and smiled. Holly, when will you change your temper? George clearly saw Holly's irritable expression and how Mika Keto comforted him. George automatically took it as a form of comfort after shirking responsibility. George began to feel uneasy. If Holly really pushed all the blame to him, he wouldn't be able to forgive himself even if he died 100 or 1,000 times. He took a deep breath and said, "Okay, I agree to tell you everything." Just then, there was a rush of footsteps. Holly's tall figure strode towards them. George's back was to the door, so he didn't see him. Suzaku glanced at Holly out of the corner of her eye. She calmly put away the gun under the table and said, "Are you sure you want to tell me everything?" "Yes, I'm sure." "Very good." These two sentences just happened to fall into Holly's ears. He was already standing by the table, staring at George with an ashen face. "George, how dare you steal the company's collection?" George was shocked. His first reaction was to look at Suzaku. Suzaku shrugged and said, "He has already put the blame on you. Am I right?" George was irritated by her expression and stood up abruptly. "Holly, you know that I was following your orders." "Damn it, how dare you frame me?" "George, you must be tired of living." Holly stared at George coldly. George was too familiar with that gaze. Every time one of Holly's subordinates made a mistake, he would stare at that person with that gaze and make him suffer. George knew very well that Holly was threatening him. George was tongue-tied and cold sweat broke out on his forehead. Mika Keto patted Holly's shoulder and said helplessly, "Holly, I know you. You would never do such a thing. Let's listen to what George has to say first. Don't scare him." Holly's gaze was still locked on George, but his lips curled up into a smile. "Ah, Shen, fortunately, you understand me. George, go ahead and explain everything clearly. Don't let anyone misunderstand." Suzaku acted as if she did not see Holly and comforted George softly. "George, don't be afraid. Tell us everything you know. I will help you." George did not dare to say anything when the demon in human skin was standing beside him. He clenched his fists and suddenly stood up. "I'm sorry, everyone. I'm not feeling well. I'll leave first." The fat figure fled as if there was a monster chasing after him. "Hey, George." Suzaku wanted to chase after him but was stopped by Mika Keto. "Forget it. Don't force him. Let him calm down. We'll find a chance to ask him tomorrow." Suzaku sighed. "That's the only way." Holly looked apologetic. "I'm sorry. It's all because I was too impulsive." "It's okay." He was hesitant to begin with. "I just have to put in a little more effort." Suzaku smiled thoughtfully. "Boss, Mr. Holly, please continue." She nodded politely and then walked out of the hotel. Holly glanced at her back and turned to look at Mika Keto. He smiled apologetically. "Shen, you won't blame me, right?" "Why would I?" "Don't take it to heart. Suzaku will find a way to pry open George's mouth." Mika Keto smiled. "Do you want to have a drink?" Holly shook his head exaggeratedly. "Forgive me. Ryan is still waiting for me at home. If she finds out that I'm drunk, she will shut me out." Mika Keto chuckled. "Okay, I won't force you." The two walked out of the hotel, chatting and laughing, and drove away in their respective cars. Mika Keto glanced at Suzaku, who was sitting in the front passenger seat. Suzaku coughed and said, "During my conversation with George, I was sure that Holly had something to do with the resale of the auction items. Unfortunately, George was so close to identifying Holly." Mika Keto pursed her lips and said calmly, "It's okay. At least, we are sure that Holly has something to do with this. I know him. He will never let George go. Send someone to keep an eye on them." Mikakito was not the only one who knew Holly. George knew him too. George knew that Holly would not let him go, so after he fled home in a panic, he immediately packed his luggage and planned to escape Rome overnight. However, he was still one step too late. The moment he stepped out of the house with his suitcase, the assassin hidden in the dark aimed his gun at him and was about to pull the trigger. Suddenly, the assassin felt a sharp pain in his calf. Something had drilled into his leg. He couldn't stand still, and his body swayed. The bullet that he fired also deviated from its fixed trajectory. "Be careful." George had just taken 2 steps when someone jumped out of the bushes and pushed him to the ground. George's chubby body fell to the ground, and he grimaced in pain. He thought that he had encountered Holly's assassin and struggled with all his might. The man on top of him said in a low voice, "Don't move. I'm here to protect you." George immediately stopped struggling, and the man dragged him to hide behind the bushes. The assassin sent by Holly dragged his leg, which was shot through by a bullet, and raised his gun to look for traces of George. Blood stained his trousers and left a trail on the ground. Pucci, another bullet shot into his other leg. "Quick, catch him." 2 black figures suddenly ran out from behind the tree and subdued the assassin in a few moves. The assassin still wanted to struggle, but he was hit on the back of his head and fainted. At this time, Jiang Dao walked over with George. "Get him into the car." "George, you come with me." After getting into the car, George saw the assassin's face in the dim light. He was indeed sent by Holly. The group returned to Mikakito's place. George didn't hesitate to tell him everything he knew about Holly's crimes after saving his life. Even in his dreams, Holly had never imagined that Baitangshan's purpose in luring him to the hotel wasn't to have George identify him on the spot, but to arouse his desire to silence George. Thus, Baitangshan was waiting for him. Beauty novel, Hongcha 866. Chapter 297. They had done a good job. They had gotten George's testimony and found out that the unlucky killer was the one who had bribed Peter to destroy the car and plant the bomb in it. The killer was called Mickey, a mercenary. He was also Holly's best bodyguard. It was not hard to explain why Holly would ask him to do the dirty work of silencing people. Mickey had a strong mental fortitude. After he was arrested, he did not say a word, let alone testify against Holly. Suzuka glanced at Mickey, who was imprisoned in the iron cage, and asked Mikakito's opinion. "Should we torture him?" Baitangshan raised his right hand as a cold smile appeared on his face. "There's no need. His existence is already a very good piece of evidence." Even if Mickey did not speak, there were other witnesses. It was enough to bring down Holly. Mikakito went to the castle and talked to Tomac for more than an hour. He presented all the evidence he had gathered during this period of time to Tomac. Tomac was, after all, someone who had been through a lot. He did not show any signs of shock, nor did he try to find an excuse for Holly. He remained silent with a complicated look in his eyes. There was disappointment, sadness, anger, and a hint of struggle. After a long time, Tomac said slowly, "Tomorrow is Hai's full moon party. We will expose him and Shui Ruin's true colors then." Mikakito was stunned. "Godfather, are you sure about this?" Holly was his nephew. Mikakito felt that it was not easy for him to not cover up for Holly. "Do you think I am too cruel?" Tomac sighed with a sorrowful expression. "Ah Shen, I'm also responsible for Holly's current state. I always felt that he had lost his parents when he was young, so I should let him feel the warmth of a family. That's why I neglected to discipline him and nurtured his bad habits. This time, I should also be ruthless. Otherwise, his life will be over." On the way back, Baitangshan couldn't help but think about this matter. This was the first time he saw Tomac reveal such a sorrowful expression. Although Tomac was the father of the mafia and was a legend that was unreachable, he was still an ordinary person. He also had family needs. He treated Holly as his own son, so it was no wonder that he would be sad. The 1-month-old banquet was held in the castle of the night. Those who were invited were the heads of the big families, as well as many rich people, politicians, and celebrities. In short, those who could get an invitation were all people with a reputation. The main hall of the castle was magnificent and dazzling. A beautiful melody lingered in the hall. Men in luxurious clothes slowly entered the hall with their female companions. Their every movement showed their noble status. The music suddenly stopped. All the lights converged on the spiral staircase. Everyone's eyes were fixed on it. Tomac stood there in a black tuxedo. There was a gentle smile on his weathered face. He gently knocked on his wine glass and said loudly, "Everyone, thank you for coming to my granddaughter's full moon party. First, let's invite up today's little hero." "Okay." There was a burst of laughter in the hall. At the entrance of the spiral staircase, a couple walked down side by side. The man was wearing a white tuxedo. He was handsome and tall. He was holding a baby in his arms. The woman was wearing a white evening gown, and she looked quite pretty and elegant. Those who knew her immediately said in a low voice, "That's Tomac's adopted daughter, Xia Dong. The man next to her should be her husband." The couple walked to Tomac's side. Tomac looked sideways at Hai, who was lying in Bailey Han's arms. The little girl was staring at him curiously with a pair of round eyes. He couldn't help laughing. "Everyone, the one in my son-in-law's arms is the second little princess of the Dark Knight family, Bailey Han. Today is Hai's full moon party. Thank you for coming to congratulate her. I would like to express my heartfelt thanks to all my friends." As soon as Tomac finished speaking, his friend, the head of the Phil family, said loudly, "Hey, friends, let's raise our glasses and wish Hai a healthy and happy growth. Congratulations. Congratulations. May little Hai be safe and healthy." Everyone smiled kindly and raised their glasses to congratulate Tomac's family. Tomac and Xia Dong slowly walked into the hall and introduced the guests. Xia Dong and Bailey Han politely greeted them. Little Hai in his arms received many red packets and gifts. The head of the Phil family, Sam, was the most direct. He put a diamond bracelet on little Hai's wrist and pinched Hai's pink cheeks happily. "Little girl, how about you be our little Ian's wife in the future?" Ian was Sam's favorite grandson. He had just turned 2 years old. Tomac deliberately blew his beard and glared. "Why? Hai is still so young, and you're already planning to kidnap her into your family. Are you declaring war on me? I say, old man, are you itching for a fight with me again? If that's the case, just say it. I'm clearly trying to matchmake 2 children. How did it become kidnapping?" The 2 old urchins bickered happily. Xia Dong held back her laughter and whispered in Bailey Han's ear, "Uncle Sam and Godfather have been old friends for many years. They often do this. Xia, little girl, what are you saying about us?" Sam's white beard curled up and his eyes widened. He looked very funny. "Oh no, Uncle Sam heard it. I just told Han that you always lose when you fight with Godfather." Xia Dong stuck out her tongue playfully. "I'm giving in to him," Sam insisted. Tomac raised his eyebrows proudly. "Thank you so much, old man. You've been giving in to me for more than 30 years. When will you show me your true strength?" Sam shrugged. "We're old friends. Winning or losing isn't important. Friendship is, so I've decided to continue giving in." The 2 of them teased each other for a while more. Sam suddenly said, "Old man, why don't I see Holly and Ashin?" The smile on Tomac's face froze. They'll be here soon. I have something to announce later. What is it? Why are you being so mysterious? Tomac patted him on the shoulder and smiled. I can't tell you for now. Old man, have a few more drinks. I'll take the two of them for a walk. Even though Bailey Han was carrying a child, it couldn't hide his charm. From time to time, young girls who had just experienced their first awakening of love would cast shy glances at him, or beautiful young women would cast scorching glances at him. Xia Dong was slightly jealous. Fortunately, the man beside her had his eyes on her and Hai from beginning to end. It seemed that he didn't notice the gazes of those women at all. Xia Dong looked at his gentle expression when he teased Hai and couldn't help but laugh. Bailey Han turned to look at her. Suddenly, he put an arm around her shoulders and lowered his head to kiss her face. She blushed and whispered, "What are you doing? There are so many people here." He chuckled softly. "I think I can taste something sour." Embarrassed, she pushed him away a little, trying to find a hole to hide in. His laughter was mellow and sexy. It sounded like he was in a good mood. "I like it when you're jealous." Xia Dong felt that she couldn't live any longer. Fortunately, her godfather helped her out. He stood in the middle of the hall, knocked on his wine glass, and said, "Everyone, there's one more thing that I would like to announce to everyone during the 1-month celebration." Everyone's attention was focused on Tomac, including Xia Dong and Bailey Han. The smile on Tomac's face had long disappeared. His expression was solemn as he glanced at everyone in the hall. Finally, his gaze landed on Mika Keto and Holly, who were slowly walking in from the entrance of the hall. Everyone followed his gaze and saw Mika Keto and Holly. They automatically parted to make a path for them. The two of them walked closer and closer until they were surrounded by everyone. Then, they walked to Tomac's side and stood still. Holly's blonde hair was slightly curly, and there was a polite smile on his handsome face. His silver suit made him look tall and slender. On his right, Mika Keto was wearing a black suit. Her facial features were cold and expressionless, and she exuded a dignified and mature charm. Tomac glanced at everyone and said in a deep voice, "I hereby announce that I, Tomac, will sever ties with Holly. All of Holly's assets will belong to the Dark Knight family, and the family has the right to take back all of his assets." The smile on Holly's face froze. He stiffly turned his neck and stared at Tomac in shock. "Uncle, are you kidding?" Tomac said calmly, "This is not a joke. Holly, you know very well what you have done. From this moment on, we are no longer uncle and nephew. Now, please leave." The crowd was in an uproar. They were also stunned. Sam stood up and said sternly, "Tomac, don't be rash. If there's anything, talk to Holly. There's no need to talk. There's no turning back for this matter. Holly, I hope you can learn from your mistakes and turn over a new leaf." Tomac turned around and no longer looked at Holly. His tone was cold and emotionless. "Leave. I don't want to see you again." The crowd whispered and guessed what had happened. All kinds of eyes fell on Holly. Some were sympathetic, some were disdainful, some were suspicious, but most of them were shocked. Holly clenched his fists. He couldn't hear what the people around him were saying. The only thing in his mind was Tomac's words. He wanted to sever ties with him and confiscate all of his assets. No, how could he do this? He was his nephew. Why was he so heartless? Holly's eyes were burning with anger. He stared at Tomac's back. His body was stiff. He stood still and didn't move an inch. Tomac had his back to him and shouted coldly, "Butler, please ask Mr. Holly to leave." Welfare, Shinwu 799. Chapter 298. Xia Dong was shocked. She could not believe what she had just heard. When the butler led the bodyguards in and grabbed Holly's arms, she finally reacted and rushed out. Bailey Han wanted to hold her back, but she pushed him away forcefully. Xia Dong rushed to Tomac and said anxiously, "Godfather, you can't do this. You can't treat Holly like this." Tomac's Adam's apple bobbed and he said in a low voice, Xia, don't get involved in this matter." "No, Godfather, Holly is your nephew. You can't treat him like this. Is there a misunderstanding?" Xia Dong looked at Mikakito, who was expressionless and silent. She said anxiously, "Brother Shin, say something and plead for Holly." Mikakito's thin lips moved slightly and she said indifferently, Xia, since Godfather has decided, let's do as he says." "Mikakito, you bastard. It's all because of you." Holly could no longer suppress his anger. He kicked away the bodyguards who were holding him and pounced on Mikakito. "Mikakito, you hypocritical bastard. I'm going to kill you." Holly's right hand reached for his waist out of habit. Bailey Han's heart tightened and he hurriedly pulled Xia Dong behind him to protect her. The others also stepped back, afraid that Holly would accidentally hurt them. Only Tomac and Mikakito remained standing in the distance with cold expressions. Damn it. Holly did not touch the pistol, because when the bodyguard approached him, he had already taken away his weapon when he was unprepared. He had already lost his head due to anger. His punches and kicks were filled with fierce killing intent. Beitangshan responded calmly and began to fight with him. Mikakito held his arms and said coldly, "Holly, if you continue to cause trouble, you'll only embarrass yourself more. Beitangshan, all of this is your fault. You took away everything that belongs to me, I will not let you off." Holly's eyes were spewing fire, and his killing intent was wreaking havoc. He suddenly attacked and punched Beitangshan's chest. While dodging, Beitangshan kicked sideways, hitting Holly's abdomen. Holly held his abdomen in pain and stared at Beitangshan with eyes filled with hatred. Tomac suddenly shouted, "Enough. Someone, hurry up and drag Holly out of here." 3 or 4 bodyguards rushed up and spent a lot of time subduing Holly, who was trying to resist. The bodyguards dragged Holly out of the hole. Holly did not give up and shouted hysterically, "Uncle, why are you doing this to me? Why?" Tomac's face turned ugly. He clenched his fists tightly and tried to suppress the anger in his heart. This bastard still did not know how to repent. "Why are you doing this to me? Don't you remember what you promised my father? You said that you would take good care of me." Holly was dragged out and kept turning back to roar. Tomac's face was ashen. He suddenly shouted, "Stop." The bodyguards stopped. Holly thought that there was a chance for a turnaround and quickly pleaded, "Uncle, no matter what misunderstanding there is between us, please give me a chance to explain." "Good, very good. I'll give you a chance." Tomac's voice was bone-chilling. "Let me ask you, did you steal QXL's collection and sell it to the black market? Did you get someone to destroy Ahan and Ushin's car and plant a bomb under Ushin's car?" Tomac's continuous questioning was powerful and resonant. It was like a bomb exploding in the empty hall, shocking everyone. Holly denied it. No, I didn't do any of these things. I've been wronged." Tomac's eyes were filled with disappointment. Things had already come to this point, but Holly still refused to admit his mistake. "Ah Shen, take out the evidence and convince him." Those who attended the banquet in the hall were all influential people. Tomac wanted to save some face for Holly, but since he refused to repent, Tomac wanted to expose him in front of everyone so that he could no longer quibble. Mikakito was already prepared. She waved her hand, and Abayo and Jiang Dao each walked into the hall with a man in tow. Peter was caught by Abayo, and Michael was caught by Jiang Dao. Peter pointed at Mickey's nose and said, "This is the man who paid me $1 million to destroy 2 cars and install a time bomb under the Ferrari." Tomac said coldly, "Michael is your bodyguard. Weren't you the one who ordered him to do all these?" Holly was about to say something, but George, accompanied by Suzaku, stepped forward. He didn't dare to look directly at Holly's angry eyes and said submissively, "Sir, I can testify that it was Holly who ordered me to sell the company's auction items to the black market. This is my account book for the past few years." George took out a small account book from his chest, bowed, and handed it to Tomac respectfully. Tomac flipped through the account book and stared at Holly coldly. "It's clearly recorded in black and white. What else do you have to say now?" Holly's face turned pale. He gritted his teeth and said, "I admit that I ordered George to do those things, but I didn't order Michael. I had nothing to do with the car explosion." Mika Kito suddenly said, "Do you mean that Michael didn't collude with Peter to kill me and Bailey Han under your order?" "Yes, that's right. I didn't know about it at all. It was Michael's personal behavior," Holly said firmly, pushing all the blame to Michael. Although Mickey was employed by Holly, he had a strong sense of honor. He obeyed all the orders. No matter if it was killing or arson, he would keep his mouth shut. Even if he was tortured, he wouldn't reveal anything about his employer. However, he would never allow others to frame him. Thus, his cold face had a subtle change. Mika Kito noticed it and sneered, "Holly, Michael was very loyal to you. Even after he was caught by us, he didn't say anything bad about you. However, you pushed all the blame to him. You've gone too far. I didn't order Michael to do those things. Why should I admit it? As to whether he did it himself or not, you should ask him." Holly didn't care about Michael's feelings at all. He still insisted that it was all his fault. Mika Kito's deep eyes fell on Michael as she said coldly, "Michael, how long are you going to cover for him? Are you going to atone for his crime? Let me remind you that he has no money now. He may not even be able to pay you your previous employment." Holly said loudly, "Michael, be careful with your words. Don't frame me." Michael couldn't restrain himself anymore. His cold eyes suddenly turned to Holly. "You don't deserve my protection. From this moment on, I'm going to fire you." He ignored Holly's shocked eyes and said sincerely, "I'm sorry. I hid it from everyone. I did follow Holly's orders to instruct Peter to destroy the car and install the bomb. You're framing me, Uncle. Michael holds a grudge against me. Don't believe what he says." Holly was forced into a corner. His eyes were almost crazy. Michael straightened his chest and raised his head to face everyone's doubts. He said in a deep voice, "I have evidence to prove what I said. The money paid to Peter was transferred to Mr. Holly's account in a Swiss bank. You can check his account details. I've already checked it." At some point, Mika Kito had a bank statement in his hand. He raised the statement in his hand and said, "You can take a look. On the day of our car accident, there was a remittance of 1 million yuan to Peter's account." Everyone was in an uproar. It was clear who was right and who was wrong. Xia Dong's legs went weak and she almost fell. Bailey Han supported her with one hand. He felt sorry for her. This fool was always so kind and unguarded against people close to her. Mika Kito lowered his eyes and took out another statement. He said slowly, "Holly, I'm very curious about this money. You once transferred 2 million yuan to a plastic surgery hospital in Korea. Why did you do that?" Holly's eyes were red. He said word by word, "This is my private matter. I don't need to explain it to anyone." Mika Kito's lips curled into a mocking smile. "If you don't want to explain, then I'll have to find the answer myself. You transferred the money to a plastic surgery hospital in Korea because the woman you love the most is going to have a plastic surgery in Korea. Her name is..." Holly looked flustered and begged with his eyes. No, don't say any more. I admit it. I admit it. Beitang Shen's thin lips were tightly pursed as he looked at the man in front of him who was pleading with him. The scene of them drinking and chatting together appeared in his mind. He had thought that they would become brothers, but Holly had ruthlessly put them to death for the sake of power. Bailey Han saw Mikakito's hesitation. He suddenly took a step forward and said coldly, "That woman is Su Yunqian. Her name is also Shui Ruyan. She once tried to kill my wife and used Barit from the Eulis family to deal with the Anya family. No, Shui Ruyan is not Su Yunqian." Holly was in a sorry state. Suzaku raised a stack of photos for everyone to see clearly. These are the photos of Su Yunqian before and after her plastic surgery. I also got the testimony of the plastic surgeon from Korea to prove that they are the same person. Holly's and Shui Ruyan's true faces were revealed in front of everyone, dripping with blood. At this time, Shui Ruyan, who was also Su Yunqian, was standing at the back of the crowd. She looked at the people who suddenly turned around and looked at her with an indescribable expression. No, I'm not. All her disguises were removed. She was on the verge of collapse. If she had known this, she wouldn't have come to the full moon banquet with Holly. No, I'm not. Su Yunqian shook her head in panic and turned around to escape. One of the guests blocked her way. She ran in another direction but was stopped by someone again. She was like a rat at the end of her rope, surrounded by everyone who pointed and mocked her. Welfare, Shinwu 799. Chapter 299. Su Yunqian knew that she was done for. Holly was also done for. She slumped to the ground and raised her head to look at the indifferent faces around her. Their disdainful gazes were all too familiar to her. In a city, she was driven into a corner by all the scandals and could only come up with the idea of faking her death, intending to change her appearance and start over again. However, she still fell into the hands of Beitang Shen. She hated it and could not accept it. Su Yunqian's tears flowed out of her eyes. A beauty was indeed a beauty. Even when she cried, she was still beautiful enough to move people's hearts. However, no one pitied her because everyone had seen through her ugly appearance. The farce ended just like that. Tomac was mentally and physically exhausted. He did not want to look at Holly and Su Yunqian anymore. He turned his back to the crowd and waved his hand. Drive them out. Holly's originally high-spirited face was stained with a layer of gray. The bodyguards dragged him and Su Yunqian out of the manor's gate. All their bank cards and credit cards were suspended. Their cars and villas were confiscated. They no longer had a place in the company. In an instant, they had gone from being billionaires to penniless paupers. Today was supposed to celebrate Hai-Hai's 1-month-old birthday, but we ended up making a fool of ourselves. Please forgive us. Tomac sincerely apologized to the guests. We're all old friends. You don't have to be so polite. That's right. Please don't take it to heart. Everyone comforted Tomac. Although the banquet was somewhat affected, fortunately, there were some guests who were good at livening up the atmosphere. Everyone soon became lively again. Bailey Han glanced at his listless wife and whispered, "Honey, you're tired. Take Hai-Hai upstairs and rest first." Xia Dong was in no mood to entertain guests because of what happened to Holly. She forced herself to cheer up and bid farewell to Tomac and Mikakito. She took her daughter from Bailey Han's arms, and the mother and daughter quietly returned to their room through the back stairs. After returning to the room, Xia Dong put the sleeping Hai-Hai into the crib and asked the nanny to take good care of her. Xia Dong unknowingly walked to the observation deck of the castle. Through the binoculars, she looked into the distance and saw Holly and Su Yunqian still hugging each other tightly at the entrance of the manor. After an unknown period of time, they finally let go of each other and left the manor hand in hand. They no longer had a car and were penniless. How were they going to leave this place? Xia Dong's mood was very complicated. She watched for a long time until the two figures completely disappeared from her sight. Then she put down the binoculars and sat on the chair in a daze. Her mind was in a mess. Holly was Su Yunqian's backer. So every time Su Yunqian hurt her, Holly knew about it, right? How could he be so cruel? On one hand, he was very gentle to her. On the other hand, he helped Su Yunqian hurt her. How could he trample on her trust in him? Xia Dong was angry and sad. She didn't know how long she had been sitting on the rooftop. It was only when Bailey Han came up that she found out that the banquet had already ended. Cece had also woken up and the nanny was taking care of her. He thought that she had disappeared and was so anxious that he was sweating profusely as he searched everywhere for her. "I'm sorry, honey." She lay in his arms, feeling very depressed. "Don't do this again in the future. Godfather has asked all the servants to look for you." Bailey Han kissed her forehead. "You've worried me to death." "I'm sorry." She blinked and tears fell down. "I'm just not in a good mood. I want to be alone for a while, I know. Okay, don't cry. It's windy here. Let's go back to the room, okay?" His voice was gentle and warm to her hurt heart. His slender fingers wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes. "Do you want to walk by yourself or do you want me to carry you?" "Carry me." She rubbed her nose, which turned pink. She stretched out her arms as if she was being shameless. "Okay, I'll carry you." He rubbed her hair and turned around. He squatted in front of her and spread his arms behind his back. "Honey, come on." She leaned against his broad back, and he held her legs with both hands. He stood up easily, and with steady steps, he slowly walked down the stairs. She wrapped her arms around his neck and leaned her head on his back. She murmured, "Honey, am I too silly?" Bailey Han's gentle voice was heard. "My wife is not silly. She's just too kind." She hugged him tightly, touched. He interrupted without any sense of beauty, "Honey, my neck is about to suffocate." She chuckled and loosened her grip on him. She could not see that the smile on his face was gentle and there was a smile in his eyes. Holly and Su Yunqian had been walking on the road for more than an hour. Su Yunqian's feet were scraped by her high heels. She could not take it anymore. She stopped and bent down to check her injury. Holly turned to look at her. "What's wrong?" She frowned. "My feet are scraped. Let's rest for a while." Holly helped her lean against a big tree by the road. This area was a little desolate. It was very close to the road where Barit had encircled and suppressed Bailey Han. Holly was touched by the scene. He looked at the forest in the distance and said in a desolate tone, "Now I have nothing." Su Yunqian looked at his handsome side profile and an indescribable feeling surged in her heart. She slowly hugged his arm and said gently, "You still have me, Holly. Even if the whole world abandons you, I won't abandon you." Holly hugged her tightly. His deep eyes shone with tears. "You'll suffer if you follow me." She chuckled. "I've already mentally prepared myself. When I had nothing, you were the one who saved me. Now, let's rely on each other." He was very touched, but he had to remind her of the reality. "We don't have a single cent on us. We don't have a place to stay tonight either. Don't be afraid. We still have these things." Su Yunqian withdrew from his arms and took off the pearl earrings on her ears, the diamond necklace on her neck, and the ruby bracelet on her wrist. These things should be able to sell for hundreds of thousands. Holly felt sad. He looked down at his wrist, took off the gold watch on his wrist and put it in her hand. And this watch? Actually, we still have a lot of things. Su Yunqian smiled. She didn't know if she was comforting him or herself. Yes, the most expensive thing is you. Holly kissed her forehead gently. Thank you for being willing to accompany me. You're welcome. She chuckled and put all her belongings in his suit pocket. She held his hand. Let's go. We still have to rush back to the city before it gets dark. They couldn't possibly spend the night in the wilderness. Suddenly, a car drove over. Holly waved his arms, hoping that the other party would give them a ride. He didn't expect the other party to have no intention of stopping at all. He stepped on the accelerator and sped past. Another car drove over. Holly shouted, "Please stop the car." The car slowed down. Holly happily held Su Yunqian's hand and ran over. The car window rolled down, and a familiar face popped out. It was the head of the Phil family, Sam. Holly was stunned for a moment, then he smiled. Uncle Sam, can we take your car back to the city? I'm sorry, Holly. Sam rejected him without hesitation. Uncle Sam, driver, drive. The car sped away. Holly tightened his grip on Su Yunqian's hand, and his expression was terrible. Su Yunqian looked at him worriedly. Darling, it's okay. We can walk back. Holly shook his head and muttered, You don't understand. The old man has really made up his mind. Even Sam won't help me. No one else will dare to help me. He was right. They met many guests coming out of the castle along the way. When they saw Holly waving his hand to stop the car, they didn't have any intention of stopping. It was as if they didn't see them. They spent more than an hour and finally reached the suburbs. There were 2 big blisters on Su Yunqian's heels. Holly helped her stand by the roadside. It wasn't easy for them to hail a very old car. The driver was an honest middle-aged man. When he saw that they were dressed extravagantly but looked very haggard, he thought that they had encountered a gangster. Su Yunqian made use of his sympathy to admit that they had encountered a gangster. Sir, can I trouble you to send us to the city? Of course. I happen to be going to the city too. The driver was kind and agreed to take them to the place they had mentioned. There were many antique shops in the area where they got off the car. Su Yunqian asked for Holly's opinion and sold a pair of pearl earrings for 10,000 euros. The two rented an apartment. It wasn't very big. It had 2 bedrooms and 1 living room. However, it was fully furnished and the surrounding environment was good. They couldn't ask for too much when they were short of money. The other jewelry was sold for a total of 500,000 euros, which was not a small amount for the 2 of them. However, the 2 of them were used to living a luxurious life and suddenly became poor. They couldn't adapt for a while and spent money like usual. It wasn't until a week later that they suddenly realized that they only had 300,000 euros left in their savings. Su Yunqian was cooking in an LV dress. She put 2 breakfasts on the table and said, Darling, we can't just sit around and eat. I'll go out and look for a job. In the past week, Holly went to many companies and submitted a lot of resumes, but they were all rejected. There was no other reason. His job requirements were all at the level of deputy general manager. Finally, a small company was willing to hire him. However, the personnel department received a call from the Castle of the Night and rejected him again. Holly held the knife and fork with both hands and was silent for a long time. Darling, I'm sorry. I can't give you anything now. It doesn't matter. Su Yunqian hugged him from behind and said softly, In fact, I have nothing to do at home every day. It's better to go out and look for a job. It won't be too boring. Ad Hongcha 866. Chapter 300. Holly knew that she was only saying that to comfort him and to protect his self-esteem. He was very touched. He got up and hugged her tightly. His voice was hoarse as he said, "Baby, give me 2 years. I'll definitely let you live a life of high society again. I know. I believe in you." Su Yunqian raised her head and kissed the corner of his lips. Her smile was warm. He hugged her tightly. After the two of them finished breakfast, Holly went out to look for a job with a briefcase in his hand. Su Yunqian stood at the entrance and helped him tie his tie. He gave her a goodbye kiss. She smiled and waved. "Darling, be careful on the road." After sending Holly off, Su Yunqian stood at the small kitchen door and looked at the pots and pans in the sink. Her expression was a little dazed. After a while, she slowly squatted down, covered her face with her hands, and wailed. Holly walked downstairs and realized that he had forgotten to bring his phone. He went upstairs to get his phone. After opening the door with the key, he heard Su Yunqian's sad cries. His footsteps froze. He didn't continue walking. Instead, he slowly walked out of the room and gently locked the door. He leaned against the wall and clenched his fists tightly. He thought that she was very strong, but he didn't know that she was always secretly crying behind his back. When he was at his lowest point, she still supported him without hesitation and accompanied him. She really loved him, but he couldn't abandon his ridiculous self-esteem. He angrily punched the wall. Finally, a determined expression appeared on his handsome face. He was no longer alone. He couldn't be willful anymore. He had to think of a way for the two of them to survive. Holly interviewed for 2 more companies, but he still didn't succeed. After walking out of the company, he tore up all his resumes and threw them into the trash can. He drove a newly bought second-hand car around the city and found a construction site. There were many workers busy at the site. There was also a fat man who looked like a supervisor wearing a hard hat looking around. "Hey, you're not allowed to park here. Get out of the way." The security guard at the site saw Holly's car and ordered him to drive away. Holly looked at the security guard and asked, "How much is your monthly salary?" The security guard thought that he was mocking him and was very annoyed. "I said, if you don't leave, I'll call the police. Hurry up and leave." Holly's face sank. If someone dared to talk to him like this in the past, he would definitely teach that person a lesson. But now, he tried to suppress his anger and said, "I think you misunderstood. What I mean is that I need a job." The security guard looked at him suspiciously. "If I'm not mistaken, the clothes you're wearing are very expensive. Are you sure you're not joking?" Huo looked at him with sincere eyes. "It's true. My company went bankrupt, so I need a job urgently." The security guard pointed at the empty space next to him. "Park your car over there first, then come and find me." "Okay, thank you." Holly followed the security guard's instructions and parked the car across the road. Then he went to the security booth to find the security guard. The security guard put on his hat and said, "Come with me. I'm an old friend of the supervisor here. He said 2 days ago that he needed to recruit a construction worker. If you can bear the hardships, you can give it a try." "Okay, no problem. By the way, what's your name?" "Holly." The security guard took Holly to the fat supervisor. "Gary, this guy named Holly wants to find a job. Aren't you short of people? What do you think of him?" Gary looked Holly up and down and narrowed his small eyes. "Young man, are you really going to work at a construction site? This is a very hard job. I think you're more suited to work in an office." "I'm not afraid of hard work. I want to support my family." Gary nodded. "Well, you can try to work for a week. If there's no problem, I'll hire you. You'll work 8 hours a day, 25 euros per hour, and your salary will be paid daily. When you become a regular worker, your salary will be raised to €30 per hour. We'll also buy you insurance and you can enjoy the welfare policy. Holly nodded. I understand. Can I start working now? Yes. Hey, Chester, come over here. Gary shouted at the top of his voice. A tall, thin black man ran over. Gary, what's the matter? Chester, this is the new Holly. Take care of him. Be careful. No problem. Chester reached out his hand. Hello, Holly. Welcome. Holly looked at his hands that were covered with lime. He hesitated for a moment and politely shook his hand. Hello, Chester. Well, now I'll take you to work. Holly and Chester walked away. The security guard looked at their backs and said, Gary, I didn't expect you to hire him so easily. Gary pressed down on his helmet and said, I didn't expect him to come to my side either. The security guard was surprised. You know him. Gary shrugged. I guess that all the bosses in Rome know him now. The Dark Knight family has already sent his photo to us. Why? Is he wanted by the Dark Knight family? Idiot, he's Tomac's nephew, but Tomac has cut ties with him. Tomac told all the big companies in Rome that they are not allowed to apply for Holly. Then you're in trouble. Tomac only forbade big companies from applying for him. Of course, our small site is different. What's more, he's not applying for an executive position, but for a construction worker at the bottom. This is allowed. That's strange. Does Tomac want to shut Holly out or help him? Gary shrugged. On the surface, he's shutting him out, but in fact, he's helping him. A proud person like him can only grow up after experiencing setbacks and putting him at the bottom. So that's how it is. Tomac has really put a lot of thought into this. I hope that guy lives up to Tomac's efforts. With the help of Chester, Holly began to familiarize himself with his work. It was all physical work and very dirty. He couldn't help but want to run away several times. But when he thought of Su Yunqian's painful look, he gave up the idea of running away. On the other hand, Su Yunqian also began to look for a job. She browsed a lot of job postings on the internet and in newspapers. But when she called, she was turned down. She intended to use her skills to visit many antique shops and auction companies, but no one was willing to hire her. She really understood the pain and humiliation that Holly suffered when he was looking for a job. She carried her handbag and walked on the busy street. Looking at the hurried crowd, she suddenly felt very tired. Since she was a child, she had been a proud daughter of a rich family. She had lived a rich life and had never worried about money. But now, she had to restrain her desire to buy things. She had to calculate how to save money. When she applied for a job, she also had to face the doubts and disdain of those people. She had had enough. She walked into a high-end coffee shop. This coffee shop was located in the Plaza de España. It had a history of hundreds of years. The decoration was elegant. There were expensive paintings hanging on both sides of the corridor. The quiet atmosphere and rich historical background attracted a lot of customers. Su Yunqian sat on the dark red velvet sofa and ordered the most expensive coffee. Holding the coffee cup, her fingers were trembling. She was struggling in her heart. Should she leave Holly? Could she really leave him? She didn't expect to meet the two people she didn't want to see the most at this time. Honey, how's the environment here? Do you like it? Yes, it's very beautiful. Hubby, you're amazing. You found such a great place. It was Bailey Han and Xia Dong. He was wearing an Italian handmade suit and looked handsome. She was wearing a red dress and looked beautiful and charming. The two of them were holding hands and smiling at each other. What a loving couple. Su Yunqian held the coffee cup tightly in her right hand. Her eyes were like sharp knives as she stared at the two people walking towards her. Bailey Han sensed the gaze from the side. He turned his head and saw Su Yunqian's frosty face. The smile on his handsome face gradually froze. Xia Dong also saw it and was slightly stunned. Hua Er smiled faintly. In her eyes, Su Yunqian was like a tiger with its teeth pulled out. There was no need to fear her. But in Su Yunqian's eyes, her smile turned into mockery. Su Yunqian put down the coffee cup and stood up. She raised her head proudly and slowly walked in front of the two of them. She looked at Bailey Han and asked, "When you heard the news of my death, were you sad at all?" She had always wanted to ask him this question. Bailey Han said faintly, "No, you're not worth it." Su Yunqian's expression changed and her eyes were filled with hatred. "I gave up everything for you, but all I got in return is not worth it. Bailey Han, do you have a heart?" "Yes." Bailey Han's gaze fell on Xia Dong and the corners of his lips curled up warmly. "My heart is with my wife. As for your life and death, I don't care at all." Bailey Han, Su Yunqian's beautiful face was distorted with anger. She raised her arm and slapped his handsome face. A hand grabbed her wrist. It was Xia Dong. Xia Dong laughed coldly. "Su Yunqian, do you think I'm dead? How dare you hit my man?" She grabbed Su Yunqian's wrist and pushed it hard. Su Yunqian staggered back and almost fell. As she retreated, she bumped into the waiter who was holding a tray and the cup of hot coffee splashed all over her back. "Ah!" she screamed miserably. The skin on her back was in excruciating pain. I'm very sorry, Mississippi. Please come with me to the changing room to treat your burns." The waiter, who was wearing a tuxedo, had undergone strict training and was not flustered in the face of danger. He invited her politely. Su Yunqian pushed the waiter away and rushed in front of Xia Dong. She shouted angrily, "Xia Dong, you be *tch. Before she could finish scolding, Xia Dong suddenly raised her hand and slapped her hard on the face. Slap! Everyone was stunned, and they turned their shocked and curious gazes over. Including Su Yunqian. She covered her face in shock. Xia Dong slowly retracted her hand. She looked down and moved her wrist. Her expression was nonchalant. "Su Yunqian, I've wanted to hit you for a long time. Today, I finally got my wish." As she said that, she suddenly raised her head and stared sharply at Su Yunqian. "You think you love Ahan, but you're wrong. You don't love him as a person. You love his looks, family background, power, and status. For his halo, you didn't hesitate to hurt others, hurt yourself, and hurt your family. Su Yunqian, you're too selfish. In your heart, there's no one else but yourself. People like you don't deserve the word love. No, you don't know anything. I love him. I love him as a person." Su Yunqian shouted hysterically. "If you really loved him, you wouldn't have lied to him. You wouldn't have hurt his family. You wouldn't have used your life to threaten him. You wouldn't have destroyed his happy family." Xia Dong's every word was powerful and aggressive. Her eyes were cold and ruthless. She stripped Su Yunqian of her pretense in front of everyone. "No, it's not like that." Su Yunqian still wanted to pester her, but Bailey Han looked at her coldly. It was as if he was looking at a stray animal by the roadside. "Su Yunqian, we've already cut off all ties. If you pester me or my family again, I won't let you off. Ahan, hubby, let's go. There's someone I don't like here. No matter how good the environment is, my mood will get worse." "Wifey, you're right." Xia Dong held Bailey Han's arm. The two of them didn't even look at Su Yunqian as they turned and walked out of her sight. Su Yunqian stood there in a daze. The skin on her back was burning with pain, reminding her of how pathetic she looked now. The waiter took a few steps forward and said politely, "Miss, please follow me." Su Yunqian followed behind him in a daze and walked into the dressing room. After a while, a waitress came in with a medicine box and helped her deal with the burns on her back. "Miss, your clothes are dirty. Do you want to call your friend to send some clothes over?" "No, thank you." Su Yunqian refused her kindness. She put on the dirty dress again, raised her chin, and walked out of the cafe step by step to maintain her dignity. When Holly returned home, Su Yunqian was preparing dinner in the kitchen. "Baby, I'm back." Holly walked behind her and hugged her from behind with one hand. Her body trembled and she made a weak sound. "What's wrong?" Holly turned her shoulder with concern. Su Yunqian smiled reluctantly. "I'm fine. Did everything go well today?" Holly's attention was successfully diverted by her. A bright smile appeared on his face. "I found a job. Look, this is my gift to you." He stretched out his left hand that was hidden behind his back. A bouquet of beautiful roses bloomed in his hand, emitting a fragrant scent. Her eyes were a little moist. Her fingers trembled as she took the roses. She mumbled, "Did it cost a lot?" Ad Hongcha 866. Chapter 301. Holly felt a little sad. He hugged her and kissed her forehead. "Don't worry. I got my salary today." She looked up at him and asked with concern, "What's your job?" "An ordinary company employee. It's a small company, so my salary is paid daily." "Really?" "Of course it's true. Why would I lie to you?" He smiled and said, "I'm going to take a shower first." "Thank you for your hard work, baby." "Okay, go ahead." Su Yunqian heard the sound of the bathroom door closing. She carried the roses to the living room and put them in a vase. Looking at the delicate flowers, the corners of her lips slowly curled up. They were like an ordinary couple. After dinner, they sat on the sofa and watched TV. At first, they were still watching and chatting, but in the end, when she didn't hear his response, she turned around and saw that he had fallen asleep on the sofa. Su Yunqian wanted to wake him up, but when she saw his frown, she closed her mouth again. She took a blanket from the bedroom and covered him with it. It was only 9 o'clock. For them who were used to the nightlife, it seemed a little early to go to bed. The TV program was very boring, and she didn't want to watch it anymore. She took her clothes to the bathroom to take a shower. After taking off her clothes, she turned her back to the mirror and tried to look at her back. There was a palm-sized burn on her back, and her skin was red. The hot water poured on the wound, and it hurt. She gritted her teeth and endured the pain. After taking a shower, she returned to the living room and sat beside Holly. She stared at him while drying her hair. He had a very handsome face, a high nose bridge, and deep eye sockets. Those eyes were especially charming. His brows were knitted together, and he seemed to have a lot on his mind. She sighed softly. So be it. At least he still loved her. She reached out and rubbed the wrinkles between his brows. He suddenly opened his eyes and sat up slowly. "How did I fall asleep? Is the TV show over?" Su Yunqian smiled. "You're too tired. Go back to the room and sleep." He smiled mischievously. "Okay, I'll go back first and wait for you on the bed." She pursed her lips and didn't say anything. She deliberately dawdled for a long time. Thinking that he had fallen asleep, she walked into the bedroom. Unexpectedly, as soon as she pulled the blanket away, he pulled her into his arms. His eyes opened slightly, and with a hazy sleepiness, he asked, "Why did you take so long?" "My hair is just drying now," she lied casually. He suddenly hugged her tightly, his hands caressing her back. His hand happened to touch her wound. It hurt so much that she trembled. "What's wrong?" Holly finally realized that something was wrong and sat up. "Take off your clothes." "No, I'm already very tired." Su Yunqian clutched the collar of her pajamas tightly. "Let me see." "Be good." Holly realized that she seemed to be hiding something. He grabbed her clothes and pulled them up bit by bit. There was a patch of red skin on her back, and there were even some small blisters. His eyes narrowed. "What's going on? How did you get hurt?" "I accidentally scalded myself. I was afraid that you would be angry, so I didn't dare to tell you." She bit her lip and avoided his angry eyes. "Idiot, why didn't you treat your injury?" "It's okay. It's just a small injury. I've already applied medicine." He ordered coldly. "The wound is already blistered. Don't tear it. Be careful of infection. Give me the ointment." "Okay." She took out a small tube of ointment from the bedside drawer and placed it on his palm. He lowered his head and gently applied the ointment for her. Even though he was already very careful, she still trembled in pain. After applying the ointment, he took off her pajamas. "Don't wear clothes. Otherwise, the fabric will rub against your back and it will be easy to get infected." "Oh," she said. She covered her chest with both hands and was a little embarrassed. "Lie down facing me." She lay down facing him. His right arm was around her waist, and he used his arm to support the quilt behind her to prevent the quilt from rubbing against her wound. He was bare-chested and wore a pair of boxer shorts. She was also bare-chested and wore a pair of laces underwear. The two of them were facing each other naked. He shifted his body and pressed against her. Her softness was pressed against his chest. Although they had been more intimate than this was the first time Su Yunqian felt her heart race. She nervously closed her eyes. She felt his burning gaze intertwining on her body. Then, he lowered his head and kissed her forehead. His voice was hoarse and full of love. "Good night, baby. Good night." She opened her eyes and kissed him on the lips. The next morning, she woke up in his arms. His hand was still around her waist. She felt that her back was empty, and the quilt didn't rub against her wound. She didn't expect that he would maintain this position for the entire night. Su Yunqian felt an inexplicable feeling in her heart. It was very warm and comforting. "Good morning, baby." He opened his eyes, and his light blue eyes were filled with smiles. "Good morning, darling." She smiled sweetly. "I'll go make breakfast. You can sleep for a while. Does your wound still hurt?" "It doesn't hurt anymore." "Let me take a look." He lifted the quilt, and her beautiful figure was completely exposed in front of him. She was a little embarrassed, but he didn't care. He held her waist and back and observed for a moment. "It looks like it's a little better. Let me apply some medicine for you." He disinfected the wound with alcohol and applied medicine. After the two of them washed up, she fried eggs and he helped to cut the ham. Su Yunqian watched him holding the knife and shook her head with a smile. "Darling, I'm really worried that you'll cut your finger." "Why would I? I'm best at using a knife." She burst into laughter. "Are you sure you're good at using a knife, not killing people?" He shrugged. "Killing people is the same as cutting vegetables." She shuddered. "Stop talking. It's so disgusting. I won't eat ham later." He laughed out loud. Holly wore a suit and leather shoes and carried his briefcase to work. In fact, he didn't need to wear a suit at the construction site, but in order to not arouse Su Yunqian's suspicion, he had to wear it. Su Yunqian tidied up the kitchen and planned to wash Holly's dirty clothes. She found that there was a lot of mud on his trousers. She thought that he had accidentally gotten it on when he walked and didn't care. However, as he became more and more tired after work every day, and the mud on his trousers never disappeared, she began to feel suspicious. After dinner that day, she leaned in his arms and asked, "Darling, is your work very hard? You look very tired when you come home every day." "Yes, it's very hard. You know, I've never worked hard before. Now I realize that work is so hard." She was thoughtful. "Where's your company? Let's have lunch together tomorrow, okay?" He stroked her hair. "My company is very small, and it's very far from home. I don't want you to work so hard and come to my place." "Okay then, I'll cook Chinese food for you tomorrow night. Remember to come back early." "Okay, I'll come back early." Su Yunqian knew very well that he was hiding something from her. Holly had to go to work. As soon as he left, Su Yunqian secretly followed him. She saw him drive out of the street and hurriedly waved for a taxi. After getting in, she immediately told the driver to follow Holly's car. In the meantime, the taxi encountered a red light. When the light turned green, Holly's car was long gone. "Sorry, we lost him," the driver said apologetically. Su Yunqian was a little discouraged. "Forget it. Let's stop by the side." After failing to follow him the first time, Su Yunqian followed him a second time. This time, because the taxi driver followed too closely, Holly seemed to realize that someone was following him. He deliberately led them around and lost them. For the third time, Su Yunqian simply put a small tracker in the trunk of his car. She asked the taxi driver to follow the route shown by the tracker and finally found Holly's destination. However, Su Yunqian wasn't happy at all. In fact, she was in a terrible mood. She stood outside the construction site and saw many people in work clothes busy. Many of their trousers were stained with mud and sand. She finally knew what Holly was doing. Su Yunqian thought that she wouldn't cry for any man again, but she couldn't control herself and tears flowed down like an open tap. The passers-by on the road noticed her abnormality and looked at her curiously. As if she didn't see them, she covered her mouth with both hands and cried bitterly. Her actions finally attracted the concern of a stranger. "Miss, are you okay?" Su Yunqian shook her head and the man handed her a handkerchief. "Thank you." She took the handkerchief and wiped the tears on her face. She gradually controlled her emotions and looked at the busy workers in the distance. She didn't see Holly, but she knew that he was one of them. She bit her lip and turned to leave. The man who handed her the handkerchief suddenly said, "Miss, do you need me to give you a ride?" Su Yunqian turned to look at him. She finally saw his face clearly. He was in his 40s, wearing a suit and leather shoes. He was handsome and had the charm of a mature man. He had a kind smile on his face. "Don't misunderstand. I can see that you're not in a good mood. So you're worried that I'll do something to hurt myself." Su Yunqian smiled sarcastically. "So, I look so pathetic." "That's not what I meant." The man smiled helplessly. "I'm sorry. I don't seem to be very good at comforting people." Su Yunqian smiled. "It's okay. I'm being too sensitive." She raised the handkerchief in her hand. "Thank you for the handkerchief. Goodbye." The man smiled. "If you don't mind, I'll give you a ride. Take it as my apology." Awesome novel, Hongcha 866. Chapter 302. Su Yunqian followed his gaze and saw his car parked not far away. It was a Rolls-Royce. She lowered her eyes and smiled faintly. All right then. Thank you for your trouble. This way, please. After they got into the car, the man handed her a business card. My name is Paul. May I know your name? Shui Ruyan. Su Yunqian glanced at the business card. It was the CEO of UWI Construction Company. As far as she knew, UWI was one of the top construction companies in Italy. Her eyes flickered slightly. Paul said as he drove, Miss Shui, where do you live? I'll get off at the square. Sorry to trouble you. More than half an hour later, the car stopped at the place Su Yunqian mentioned. Paul opened the door for her like a gentleman. Miss Shui, it's nice to meet you. I hope we'll have a chance to meet again in the future. Nice to meet you too, Mr. Paul. The two smiled and parted ways. The Rolls-Royce disappeared from her sight. Su Yunqian looked at the business card in her hand and smiled. She put the business card into her handbag. The square was not far from where she lived. She walked to the nearest supermarket and bought a large bag of vegetables, fruits, and supplements. In the afternoon, Su Yunqian was busy in the kitchen. She planned to make braised fish. She took the fish out of the fridge and opened the fresh-keeping bag. A strong fishy smell assailed her nose. Her stomach churned. She quickly covered her mouth and ran to the bathroom to vomit on the toilet. After vomiting, she had no energy left. Looking at herself in the mirror, Su Yunqian had a bad feeling. It seemed that she had not had her period for more than a month. Could she be pregnant? The more she thought about it, the more nervous she became. She immediately changed her clothes, took her wallet and went downstairs to the nearest supermarket to buy a pregnancy test. She held the pregnancy test and did not dare to test it for a long time. Suddenly, she heard the sound of the door lock. Holly had returned. She did not expect that she would hesitate and struggle for more than an hour. Su Yunqian quickly stuffed the pregnancy test under the sofa cushion and walked into the kitchen. She covered her mouth and nose and continued to cook braised fish. Baby, I'm back. Holly's tall figure appeared at the kitchen door. He had a bright smile on his face and a bottle of red wine in his hand. We can spend a romantic night together. In fact, he had become a regular worker today and his salary had increased. He wanted to celebrate. Su Yunqian smiled and said, Darling, you're back. The food will be ready soon. You can take a bath first. Holly leaned over and kissed her on the cheek and said, Good. Su Yunqian placed the braised fish in front of him and sat opposite him, away from the fishy smell. During the meal, she did not touch the braised fish at all. Holly was a little surprised. Baby, don't you like fish very much? Why aren't you eating today? My stomach is a little uncomfortable. The smell of fish makes me sick. Su Yunqian fanned her nose exaggeratedly. He put down his chopsticks. Are you all right? It's okay. I've already gone to the hospital for a checkup. There's no problem. As long as you pay attention to your diet, you'll get better. Why didn't you say so earlier? Don't drink the red wine anymore. He took away the wine glass in front of her. You're not feeling well tonight. Rest early. I'll clean the kitchen. Su Yunqian smiled. When did you learn how to do housework? Why didn't I know? Holly walked to her side and hugged her. His voice was a little low. If you can learn, I can too. She used to be with him and was used to living a good life. There were many servants to serve her. Even if she was in the mood to cook for him occasionally, she had never washed the dishes or mopped the floor. But now, she was doing all these things very well. Every time Holly felt that the work was hard and difficult to persevere, he would think of the pain she had suffered and then have the motivation to persevere. He kissed her earlobe and said softly, none of the friends who used to call me brothers helped me when I was in trouble. None of the women who used to say that they loved me were willing to have anything to do with me. Only you were willing to accompany me at this time. Sometimes, I can't help but thank disaster. It made me realize what a great woman I have." Su Yunqian leaned into his arms, her eyes drooping slightly to hide the tears inside. "Baby, I swear that our bitter days are only temporary. I will think of a way to make a comeback." "I know, I believe you." Her voice was a little choked up. "All right, you're not feeling well. Go rest first." He rubbed her hair. Su Yunqian lay on the bed, listening to the crisp sound of cups and bowls colliding in the kitchen. She felt a little frustrated. She felt that the development of the situation was getting further and further away from the path she had expected. After thinking for a long time, she decided to find out if she was pregnant or not. After Holly went to work, she took a pregnancy test and found that she was really pregnant. At that moment, she was about to break down. Ring ring ring. The landline in the living room rang. Su Yunqian took a deep breath. "Hello, who is this?" "Hello, is this Miss Shui?" "I'm Paul. Do you remember me?" A man's magnetic voice came from the phone. Su Yunqian said coldly, "Mr. Paul, how do you know my phone number?" "Through the phone, Miss Shui. Ever since we met yesterday, I've been thinking about you. Do you have time? I'd like to treat you to a cup of coffee." "Sorry, I'm busy. I don't have time." "When do you have time?" Su Yunqian frowned. "Mr. Paul, I want to remind you that I already have a boyfriend." "I know, and I also know that his name is Holly. He's been banned by the Dark Knight family." Paul's voice was ambiguous. "There's no need for a beauty like you to continue living a hard life with him. If you change your mind, you can contact me at any time." After ending the call, Su Yunqian leaned against the sofa. She looked at the pregnancy test on the tea table and covered her face with her hands. Her thin shoulders trembled and tears slowly flowed down from between her fingers. At the construction site, a man in a hard hat and overalls was standing on a high steel frame. A safety rope was tied around his waist and he was working high up. Even though it was far away, Su Yunqian recognized that it was Holly. In the past few days, she had secretly come to the construction site to see him every day and learned about his work. In short, he did all the dirty and tiring work on the construction site, and sometimes he did some very dangerous work. In order not to be discovered by him, she wore big sunglasses, a t-shirt, torn jeans and a pair of sneakers. In short, even if he found her, he would never recognize her. "Miss, it's very dangerous here. Please don't stay here." A security guard came over to remind Su Yunqian. "Got it. I'll leave right away." Su Yunqian looked sideways at Holly, who was working high up in the air, and then turned to leave. Gradually, a decision came to her mind. "Miss Shui, we meet again." A Rolls-Royce suddenly stopped beside Su Yunqian. The door opened, and Paul's tall figure appeared in front of her. She nodded politely. "Mr. Paul." Paul smiled. "You're dressed very special today. If you hadn't taken off your glasses just now, I wouldn't have recognized you." Su Yunqian pursed her lips. "You seem to be here all the time." Paul shrugged and laughed exaggeratedly. "You don't think I'm following you, do you? In fact, I'm talking about a project with this construction company." He raised his chin at the construction site where Holly was. "Do you, the CEO, need to talk about a project in person?" Su Yunqian looked suspicious. Paul raised his eyebrows and spread his hands. "It can't be helped. Although this construction company is small, the boss is very stubborn. We've been talking about the acquisition for nearly half a month, but we still haven't succeeded." Su Yunqian's eyes flickered. You're planning to acquire this company? Yes. If the acquisition is successful, we might have to fire some of the employees. Paul pointed out. Su Yunqian's fingernails dug into her palms. She had a faint smile on her face. Mr. Paul, if you have something to say, just say it. Paul smiled and said, Miss Shui is very smart. I don't think I need to make it too clear. Are you going home? Shall I give you a ride? Su Yunqian quietly looked into his deep eyes. It was a pair of shrewd and scheming eyes. She slowly curled her lips and chuckled. All right, thank you for your trouble. You're welcome. Please get in the car. Paul opened the car door and made an inviting gesture. After driving for half an hour, Su Yunqian realized that the route wasn't right. She turned around and asked Paul, This isn't my way home. Where are we going? I'll take you to a place. We can also have a cup of coffee on the way. Su Yunqian frowned. Mr. Paul, have you always been so assertive? No, I'm only like this for you. Paul looked at her seriously, his eyes flashing with passion. Ryan, do you believe in love at first sight? An elegant and perfect woman like you definitely won't believe in such a vulgar plot. However, it did happen, so please listen carefully. I've never loved someone so deeply until I met you. Su Yunqian was slightly stunned and smiled. As you said, I don't believe in love at first sight. I'll make you believe it. Paul smiled confidently. They had arrived at their destination. Su Yunqian looked through the car window and saw a jewelry store opposite. She pursed her lips. Why did you bring me here? You'll know soon. Su Yunqian didn't know what Paul was up to. She followed him into the jewelry store. The store manager immediately greeted them. Mr. Paul, welcome, welcome. Looking at the situation, the two of them seemed to be very familiar with each other. Paul introduced, Ryan, this is Charles. Charles, this is my friend Shui Ryan. Hello Miss Shui, I'm the store manager here. It's my honor to serve the two of you. Paul smiled. Charles, I'm here to pick up that thing. Okay, please follow me. Charles led them to the VIP room. A clerk served them coffee. Charles said, Please wait for a moment. I'll go get that thing now. Okay. Su Yunqian sat on the expensive leather sofa. Paul kept staring at her. That kind of gaze made her a little uneasy. She pretended to take a sip of the coffee. He suddenly said, I've never seen a woman as confident as you. Even if you're wearing inappropriate clothes, you're still so calm and composed. You don't even have any sense of embarrassment. You even make the onlookers have the illusion that they're wearing the wrong clothes. Su Yunqian raised her eyebrows and faintly said, Why do I feel that your words seem to be reminding me that my current attire is not suitable for this place? Paul helplessly smiled. It must be your misconception. I'm obviously praising you. Ryan, if my previous words have offended you, I apologize to you. Please let down your guard against me, okay? Su Yunqian put the coffee cup on the table and faintly smiled. I'm sorry. After going through so many things, I've put thorns all over my body because I don't want to get hurt again. Paul stared into her eyes and said sincerely, I've heard about the things between you and Holly. I can tell you frankly that I have nothing to do with the Dark Knight family, and I won't do anything for them. The only reason I approach you is because I love you. Su Yunqian quietly stared at him, as if she was considering the truth of his words. After a long while, her lips curved into a smile. That kind of smile was different from a polite smile. It was a very sincere smile. Thank you. Paul also smiled. When he was about to say something, the store manager, Charles, came in with a red velvet box in his hand. "Sorry to keep you waiting." Charles opened the box. A very beautiful emerald pearl necklace lay inside. Charles introduced, "Mr. Paul, this is the necklace you asked us to look for. It used to be Queen Mary's favorite." "Charles, thank you." Paul reached out and shook Charles's hand. "You're welcome." The two came out of the jewelry store. Paul drove to a high-end coffee shop. The two sat in the elegant coffee shop. Paul put the red velvet box in front of Su Yunqian. "Ruyan, when I first saw you, I felt that this necklace was very suitable for you." Su Yunqian used to be an antique appraiser. She was very clear about the value of this necklace. It was worth at least $3 million. Even for her, who used to be rich, this was not a small amount. She calmly refused. "Mr. Paul, this gift is too expensive. I can't accept it." "Well, I'll keep it. I think one day, you'll be willing to accept it." He was very confident. Su Yunqian smiled but did not say a word. The two talked happily. During the conversation, Su Yunqian moderately showed her knowledge and accomplishment. Paul's impression of her was getting better and better. Su Yunqian also saw his maturity, wisdom, and humor. She gradually let down her guard against him. When they parted, Paul hugged her like a friend. She didn't refuse. Come and see, Hongcha 866. Chapter 303. In the following week, Paul was like an old friend. He often called Su Yunqian and asked her out for coffee or dinner. She would occasionally accept his kind intentions. They had a lot in common and had a lot to talk about. He even revealed his personal feelings to her. He told her that he was married and had a son and a daughter with his ex-wife. He also said that he loved her and wanted to marry her. She just laughed it off and didn't seem to take it to heart. On the other hand, Su Yunqian was very hesitant. She didn't know if she should tell Holly about her pregnancy. She finally made up her mind, but when she really faced him, she asked, "Darling, do you like children?" Holly lazily laid on the sofa and pulled her into his embrace. "I don't really like it. Kids are noisy and annoying. But if it's an obedient and cute child like Xiao Guai, it's a different story." Su Yunqian's expression changed and her fingers suddenly grasped his arm. Holly said regretfully, "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have mentioned them." Su Yunqian forced a smile. "It's okay." Actually, she wasn't upset because he mentioned Xiao Guai, but because he didn't seem to like children. Holly stroked her long hair and said gently, "Why are you suddenly asking me this question?" She smiled. "Darling, how about we have a child?" Holly's movements froze. His expression became uncomfortable, and his eyes were filled with struggle and hesitation. Su Yunqian waited for his answer and clenched her fingers nervously. His sexy lips pursed and he said slowly, "Baby, our current situation is a little bad. I think it's not suitable to raise a child for the time being." Su Yunqian was stunned. She forced a smile and hid the pain in her eyes. "Yes, you're right. It's not suitable to have a child now." He hugged her tightly and kissed her hair. "Baby, give me 2 years. I'll let us live a prosperous life again. When that time comes, we'll have a child, okay?" This was probably the first time he had asked her for her opinion, but she wasn't happy at all. She loved the child in her belly and wanted to give birth to a child, but she had to admit that Holly was right. They weren't in the condition to raise a child now. They didn't even have the right to be parents. Su Yunqian held back the tears in her eyes and nodded. "Okay, we'll have a child in the future." He stroked her back and nibbled her earlobe. "It's time to rest. I'll carry you back to the room." How could Su Yunqian not understand the meaning of his words? She quickly sat up in his arms. Darling, I'm on my period today. It's not convenient. Okay, we haven't had sex in a long time. He looked a little annoyed and carried her. Looks like I'll have to endure for a few more days. Ever since Su Yunqian found out that she was pregnant, she had been using all kinds of excuses to reject his advances. Fortunately, he worked hard and his needs weren't as strong as before. The number of times she rejected him wasn't that many, so it didn't arouse his suspicions. Su Yunqian went to the hospital alone and sat in the corridor of the obstetrics and gynecology department. She saw many pregnant women doing prenatal checkups with their husbands and suddenly felt envious. She used to think that women who sacrificed everything for their families were ridiculous, but now that she was pregnant, she had the idea of being a good wife and mother. Miss Shui, it's your turn. Please come with me. The nurse interrupted Su Yunqian's thoughts and led her into the operating room. Miss Shui, I've looked at the checklist. The child is developing very well. Are you sure you want to abort the child? The doctor confirmed again before she lay on the operating bed. Su Yunqian clenched her fists and took a deep breath. Then, she slowly exhaled. Yes. Please lie on the operating bed. The doctor was ready. He held the anesthetic in his hand. Relax. I'm going to inject you with the anesthetic. The cold liquid was injected into her body. She felt herself stiffen and couldn't move her fingers. However, her eyes were still open and she tried hard to look at the figure in front of her. Someone separated her legs, and an ice-cold instrument reached into her lower body. A huge sense of fear surged like a tide. She tried hard to open her mouth and shouted with the last of her strength, "Stop!" 10 minutes later. Su Yunqian sat on the sofa in the corridor with a pale face. The anesthetic had worn off, but she still felt that her feet couldn't move. She took out her phone and dialed a number. It's me. Do you have time now? Half an hour later, Paul's tall figure appeared at the end of the corridor. He walked quickly to her side with an anxious look on his face. What's the matter? Are you sick? Su Yunqian looked at him in a daze. Her face was pale and she looked terrible. What's the matter? Paul grabbed her shoulders nervously. Ruyan, tell me. Her eyelashes fluttered and a tear rolled down. She asked in a trembling voice, Paul, do you still mean what you said? Yes, it all counts. Paul held her shoulders tightly and looked very determined. If you want to get married, we can register tomorrow. Su Yunqian's vision was blurred by tears. But. I'm pregnant. Paul froze and there was a look of disbelief on his face. She smiled bitterly. I don't want to give up the child. Paul's eyes were filled with complicated emotions. He pursed his lips and didn't say a word. Forget it. Just take it that I didn't ask anything. She pushed his hand away slowly and said softly, Send me back. She stood up and walked forward slowly. Her back view looked so weak and helpless. Paul suddenly said loudly, It's okay. Su Yunqian turned around stiffly. He had already run to her and hugged her tightly in his arms. His voice was urgent. It's okay. I don't mind. When the child is born, I'll treat him as my own. I'll love him and dote on him. You know that I have 2 children with my ex-wife. Don't mind, okay? She stood there stiffly for a long time before she finally reached out and wrapped her arms around his waist. Okay, she said softly. He held her face and moved closer to her. She didn't push him away like before, but closed her eyes. He kissed the corner of her lips and said softly, When will you move to my place? Let me take care of you. She looked down and said softly, Give me a few days. Okay, I'll wait for you. That night, Holly returned home very late. He had drunk and reeked of alcohol. He leaned against the door and knocked hard, saying, "Baby, I'm back." Su Yunqian had been sitting on the sofa waiting for him. When she heard the noise, she immediately ran over and opened the door for him. She couldn't help but frown when she saw how drunk he was. Holly giggled. "Baby, I'm back." She was helpless and reached out to help him. "I know. Come in quickly. Why did you drink so much?" Party." He mumbled a few words. She didn't hear him clearly and didn't ask further. She helped him into the house and placed him on the sofa. Although it wasn't a long distance, he was very heavy. After carrying him for a while, Su Yunqian was already panting. "I'll prepare the bath water for you. Take a rest first." He mumbled a few words and then lay down on the sofa. When Su Yunqian came out of the bathroom, he had already fallen asleep. She sighed and got a basin of hot water. She took a towel over and wiped his face and chest. Then she took off his shoes and covered him with a blanket. Her slender and fair fingers caressed his face. His handsome eyebrows, his straight nose, his thin lips, and his sharp chin made her chuckle. Since when did she start to miss this man? She squatted in front of him and leaned her head on his chest. She said softly, "Holly, if it weren't for me, would your life be different?" It was as if he could feel her sadness. He suddenly raised his hand and hugged her shoulder. She was shocked. Thinking that he had woken up, she looked up at him but saw that his eyes were closed. Just like that, she was held in his arms and maintained this position for the entire night. When she woke up, her arms, neck, and body hurt. She tried to move her stiff neck and found that he was still asleep, but his arm was still on her shoulders. She carefully moved his arm away and got up from the ground. Su Yunqian made the last breakfast and brought it to the dining table. Then she took out the small suitcase that she had already packed from the wardrobe. She kissed his forehead and quietly walked out of the room. The moment she locked the door, she looked back at Holly, who was still sleeping soundly. Her eyes glistened with tears. Paul was waiting at the intersection in the car. When he saw her coming, he took a few steps forward, took the suitcase from her hand, and kissed her cheek. "Good morning." She looked back in the direction of home and said, "Let's go." Not long after their car drove away, Holly woke up. He sat up from the sofa and rubbed his hangover head. He frowned and called out, "Baby." He called out a few times, but no one responded. He smelled the fragrance of milk and fried eggs. He stood up and walked into the bedroom. No one was there. He opened the bathroom door, but there was still no one there. He suddenly sobered up. He hurried back to the bedroom and opened the wardrobe. There were only his clothes left. Her clothes were all gone. Her pink Louis Vuitton suitcase was also gone. Holly was stunned. All the blood in his body rushed to his brain. His hands and feet were cold. No, it was impossible. She said that she would not leave him. He ran downstairs and shouted, "Baby, Yunqian, where are you?" He had completely lost his mind. He wandered around the neighborhood aimlessly and called her name crazily. Other than the office workers who occasionally glanced at him curiously, no one responded to him. Awesome novel, Hongcha 866. Chapter 304. Holly frantically searched for Su Yunqian. If the supervisor hadn't called him and asked him why he was absent from work, he would have forgotten about going to work. He replied that he was sick and had taken a day off. After that, he desperately tried to call Su Yunqian's cell phone, but it was turned off and there was no way to contact her. After a series of emotional changes from shock, pain, and exposure, he finally calmed down and ran to the property management office to pull up the surveillance video below the building. He saw Su Yunqian dragging her suitcase out of the building. He saw a handsome middle-aged man walk up to her, take the suitcase from her hand, and kiss her cheek. The anger in his heart immediately rose like a volcano erupting. Blazing magma spread from the bottom of his heart, almost burning him to ashes. Damn it, if I find your whereabouts, you're dead meat. At this moment, Holly had become the cold and ruthless young master of the mafia family. His eyes were filled with bloodthirsty murderous intent. However, he had nothing now. It would be difficult to find him with just a man's face. After thinking for a long time, he decided to give up his dignity and ask that person for help. Mika Kito was playing with Xiao Guai in the hospital when his cell phone suddenly rang. When he saw the caller ID, he didn't answer immediately. Xiao Guai, who was in his arms, stretched her neck to take a look and cried out in surprise, "It's Uncle Holly." "Uncle Shen, I want to talk to Uncle Holly." The adults kept what happened at Hai's full moon party from the children, so Xiao Guai didn't know that the Uncle Holly she was talking about was actually a bad guy. "Okay." Mika Kito helplessly stroked Xiao Guai's little head, which had started to grow hair. After Mika Kito picked up the call, he didn't wait for the other party to speak and said in a deep voice, "Holly, I'm at the hospital now. Xiao Guai wants to talk to you." Holly had already prepared a lot of things to say, but he was at a loss for what to do when Zhang Zian beat him to it. He mumbled, "Okay. Naughty girl, here you go." Mika Kito handed the phone to Xiao Guai. Xiao Guai called out sweetly, "Uncle Holly, are you okay?" Holly's fingers suddenly tightened around the phone. He cleared his throat and said, "I'm fine, Xiao Guai. How are you?" "I'm fine too," Xiao Guai said softly. "Uncle Holly, let me tell you a piece of good news. I've started to grow my hair. Mommy said that in 2 months, my hair will be tied up and I'll be as beautiful as before." "That's great. Eat more vegetables and your hair will grow faster. Gigai, you have to listen to the doctor. Don't be afraid to take medicine, okay?" Okay. "Uncle Holly, when are you coming to see me?" "In a few days. I'm very busy during this period of time." Xiao Guai frowned and quickly smiled. "Oh, I see. Then you go ahead. When you're not busy, remember to come and see me." "Okay, I'll definitely come and see you." "Uncle Holly, do you have something to say to Uncle Shin?" "I'll return the phone to him." Holly said, "Okay." After a short silence, Holly heard Mika Kito's deep voice. "Why are you looking for me?" This was the first time Holly had contacted them since he was kicked out of the castle. Holly paused and said in a deep voice, "Mika Kito, I admit that I've done a lot of things to let you down. I apologize." Mika Kito picked up Xiao Guai and put her aside. He patted her head and walked to the corridor before he replied, "Even if you apologize, I won't forgive you. How could you help Su Yunqian hurt Xia?" Holly was silent for a moment. "I've done everything for the sake of power." It was a short sentence, but it explained all the evil reasons. Beitangshan paused for a moment, then said, "If there's anything you need my help with, just say it." He understood Holly. If it wasn't for the fact that he had encountered some difficulties, he wouldn't have lowered his head to him at this time. "I want you to help me investigate a person's background and find out his whereabouts. Send me the photo." Holly took a screenshot of Paul's photo from the surveillance video and sent it to Mika Kito. Mika Kito forwarded it to the Dark Knight family. In less than an hour, he received a response and sent the information to Holly. Holly said, "Thank you." Mika Kito said calmly, "Holly, I hope you know what you're doing." Holly flipped through the information sent to him by Mika Kito. The man's name was Paul and he was the president of UWI Construction Company. The information gave him his phone number, company address, and home address. Holly could find Paul through these things. Holly dialed Paul's private number. After 2 rings, a deep voice came from the other end of the line. "Hello, this is Paul." "Who is this?" Holly said coldly, "I want to talk to Shui Ruyan." "Pass the phone to her." Paul paused and said, "She's not here. If you want to talk to her, you can call her on her cell phone. I know she's right beside you. Pass the phone to her." He only suspected that they were together, but he didn't have any evidence. But he didn't expect a familiar voice to come from the other end of the line. "It's okay. Let me talk to him." After that, the phone was handed over to Su Yunqian, and Paul considerately left. Su Yunqian called his name in a low voice. "Holly." Holly clenched his fists tightly. He gritted his teeth and squeezed out a few words. "Why?" At this moment, Su Yunqian was standing on the balcony of a luxurious villa. She looked at the sparkling swimming pool not far away and said calmly, "Because I don't want to suffer anymore." "Holly, let's break up." Holly said angrily, "No, I don't believe you. We were fine 2 days ago. Tell me, why?" "What I said before was a lie." "Holly, I've been using you all this time. Go back and beg your uncle. Maybe he can let you return to the family." "Shut up. It's not like that." "Did my uncle say something to force you to leave me?" "No, I left you because I don't want to suffer with you." "Holly, let me go." "No, you're mine. Come back immediately. I'll forgive you and continue to be like before." "You know that's impossible." Su Yunqian's eyes were filled with pain. She said word by word, "I've fallen in love with Paul." Holly roared in anger. "Su Yunqian, you hateful woman. Do you have a heart?" "I'm sorry. I don't have a heart. I'm very selfish. You should have known that, right? Holly, don't look for me in the future. I won't follow a loser." After Su Yunqian said this, she hung up and turned off the phone without waiting for his reply. Holly was so angry that he almost vomited blood. He threw the phone against the wall. This was the first time he had fallen in love with a woman, but he had been miserably deceived by this woman. He angrily smashed all the things in the room. It was a mess. After the silence, the room was as messy as he was. The air was filled with despair and anger. Holly was a very proud person. He didn't allow any betrayal. When he was still the young master of the Dark Knight family, all the people who betrayed him had gone to hell. This time was no exception. He had already prepared for the worst. He quit his job and went to the black market to buy a pistol. He drove the car to Paul's villa and waited for a few hours until Paul and Su Yunqian got in the car and came out of the villa. Holly was very good at following others. He followed the Rolls-Royce all the way to the airport. He saw Paul and Su Yunqian get out of the car hand in hand. The driver took a red suitcase out of the trunk. He knew that suitcase. It was Su Yunqian's. In the airport hall, Paul hugged Su Yunqian and said softly, "You really don't want me to accompany you?" Su Yunqian smiled. "Well, I know you're busy with work. I'm only going back to China to visit my family. I'll be back soon." Paul smiled. "When are you going to introduce me to your family?" "Next time." Su Yunqian was suddenly enlightened. She, who had been dead, suddenly stood in front of her family with a new face. Would they be willing to forgive her and accept her? Well, there's an old saying in China. An ugly daughter-in-law has to meet her parents-in-law. I, the ugly son-in-law, also have to meet my mother-in-law. He laughed and joked. Su Yunqian smiled and hugged him. "It's almost time. I'm leaving." Well, have a safe trip. I'll miss you. Paul lowered his head and kissed her lips. Why are you leaving me? Do you really fall in love with this man? Holly's cold voice came. Su Yunqian quickly pushed Paul away. She looked up in a panic and saw Holly standing 10 meters away. He looked a lot worse, with stubble on his chin, his shirt wrinkled, and his eyes bloodshot. She couldn't help but clench her fists when she thought that someone who cared about his appearance to the point of being harsh would look like this. Let me ask you. Do you really fall in love with him? Although he looked unkempt, the domineering and ruthless aura he exuded did not change. He approached her step by step, his eyes like a sharp blade cutting into her. Her legs were trembling, but she didn't retreat. She met his cold gaze and gritted her teeth. Yes, I love him. Holly's eyes suddenly shot out a murderous look. He said sternly, I'll give you one more chance. Come back to me. Su Yunqian dug her nails into her palm and said indifferently, impossible. Good, very good. Holly suddenly pulled out a pistol from his waist and pointed it at Su Yunqian. Su Yunqian didn't seem surprised at all. She slowly closed her eyes. Even if you kill me, I won't go back with you. Paul was stunned. He shouted, No, don't shoot. Ah! A pistol. Someone screamed. The surrounding people retreated. In an instant, only the three of them were left in the huge hall. The airport was in chaos. Someone had already called the police. Come and see, Xinwu 799. Chapter 305. Holly turned a blind eye to everything around him. He aimed the gun at Su Yunqian, but he couldn't bring himself to do it. In the end, he suddenly turned the gun and pointed it at Paul. He said coldly, If you don't want to go back with me, I'll kill him and tie you up. No, don't kill me. Miss Shui, please go back with him. Paul immediately turned into a different person and raised his hands. Su Yunqian was extremely disappointed. She didn't expect Paul to be such a man. If it was Holly, he definitely wouldn't be so irresponsible. She only remembered his good points now. She said indifferently, Don't kill him. Holly reached out a hand and stared at her with his deep eyes. Come to my side. Su Yunqian shook her head slowly. I won't go over, Holly. Actually, I've never loved you. I've always been using you. I wanted to use your power to snatch Bailey Han. Until now, my heart still only has Bailey Han. No, shut up. Holly was already burning with anger. Her words were like adding fuel to the fire. The name Bailey Han was like a curse that broke the last bit of rationality in his mind. He angrily pulled the trigger. Bang! The bullet flew towards Paul's chest. Su Yunqian suddenly flew in front of Paul. The bullet shot into her chest at an extremely fast speed. A hole was opened in her chest, and blood flowed out of it. Holly was stunned as if he was struck by lightning. Her body slowly slid down. Ruyan, Paul growled and hugged her. He was terrified. Ruyan, why did you do this? She didn't know why either. Perhaps she just suddenly wanted to be a good person. Yunqian. Holly rushed forward and snatched her from Paul's arms. He carried her and ran out of the airport in panic. He kept saying, Don't be afraid, don't be afraid. You'll be fine. Baby, you'll be fine. Su Yunqian looked up at his anxious face. Her eyes were covered with a layer of mist. She grabbed his arm and said very softly, Holly, there's no need. It's too late. No, you'll be fine. Tears welled up in Holly's eyes. He hugged her and covered her bleeding chest with one hand. He begged, Yunqian, please, don't get hurt. I promise. Even if you want to leave me, I'll agree. Don't get hurt, I won't leave. I won't leave anymore. Su Yunqian looked at his tear-streaked face in confusion. She said intermittently, actually. I lied to you. I don't love Bailey Han anymore. I love you. I love you so much, so much. Don't say any more. Please don't say any more. Taxi, taxi. Holly stood at the intersection with her, who was covered in blood. He waved his hand wildly in the wind. Finally, a taxi stopped in front of him. He carried her into the car and said, "Hospital." The driver was frightened by the blood on their bodies and immediately drove to the nearest hospital at the speed of an airplane. "Baby, it'll be fine. Hang in there. We'll get to the hospital soon." Holly covered her wound tightly. Tears rolled down her face. She smiled absent-mindedly and said intermittently, "Holly. I'm so lucky to have met you. In this life, you spoil me. In the next life, I'll love you." "No, I don't want the next life. I want this life. Su Yunqian, I order you. Don't let anything happen to you. Don't give up. We still have children. I haven't proposed to you. How can you abandon me?" Holly held her hand tightly. His tone was fierce, but he couldn't stop the tears in his eyes. She twitched violently and coughed. Bright red blood flowed out of the corner of her mouth. "Holly, no matter what happens, you have to live well. Together with my share, together. No, I want you to live with me. Please, hang in there." Holly held her hand tightly. With deep panic in his eyes, he shouted at the driver, "Faster, faster." Su Yunqian's eyes were flowing with tears. Her eyes were gradually losing focus. "Holly, when I die, send me back to China and apologize to my family for me." Her body gradually turned cold. Her fingers in his hand became stiff. Her eyes were also losing focus. She stopped breathing amidst his mournful cries. Holly hugged her and cried in grief. "Yunqian, how can you abandon me? You said that you would stay with me. You lying woman. Do you know that I love you? I love you so much." Unfortunately, she couldn't hear his call anymore. His tragic cries echoed in the narrow car. Even the driver in the front seat couldn't help but cry. The news of Su Yunqian's death finally reached the ears of Xia Dong and the others. Once a person was dead, all the past events should be put aside. After some discussion, Xia Dong, Bailey Han, and Bai Tangshan finally decided to attend her funeral. The funeral parlor was very quiet. There were only a few people in it. Su Yunqian was wearing a beautiful wedding dress and lying in the coffin. She looked serene, as if she was just sleeping. Holly was wearing a black suit. He knelt in front of the coffin. He held her hand with a diamond ring in his hand and said in a solemn and low voice, "Yunqian, whether you like it or not, from today onwards, you are my wife. No matter if it's a blessing or a curse, illness or health, I will love and cherish you. Even death can't separate us." Watching him put the ring on Su Yunqian's finger, Xia Dong couldn't help but cry. She turned her head and couldn't bear to look. Bailey Han put his arm around her shoulder. After Holly put the ring on Su Yunqian's finger, he leaned over and kissed her lips gently. He murmured, "Yunqian, I love you." Heavy footsteps sounded. Paul's tall figure appeared at the door. He was wearing a black suit with a white chrysanthemum in his pocket. He looked very sad. He walked to Su Yunqian's coffin and slowly bowed. Holly suddenly jumped up and punched Paul's cheek. He roared, "Bastard, it's all your fault. If it weren't for you, she wouldn't have died." Paul was caught off guard and was knocked to the ground by Holly's punch. He covered his cheek in embarrassment. Holly didn't stop and rushed up again. Bailey Han and Mika Keto looked on coldly and didn't intend to stop him. Paul didn't have time to get up and was kicked hard again. Holly vented all his anger on Paul. He grabbed his collar with one hand and kicked him up from the ground. He clenched his right hand into a fist and punched him hard on the head. No, stop. Paul hurriedly grabbed his wrist. You're the one who killed Ryan. Do you know that she came to me because she was pregnant? Holly suddenly stopped. After a while, he grabbed his collar tightly with both hands and said fiercely, "What did you say?" "Say it again." "I said, because she was pregnant and you didn't want the child, she came to me because she wanted to give the child a happy family." Paul was anxious and scared. He blurted out everything. "I don't believe you. You must be lying." Holly punched him hard on the nose. Paul's nose was bruised and his face was swollen. He was bleeding profusely. "Whether I'm lying or not, you can go to the hospital and ask the doctor." "Holly, knowing that you killed your wife and child doesn't feel good, does it?" Paul grimaced in pain. He couldn't beat Holly in physical strength, so he used words to hurt him. "Shut up. I'm going to kill you." Holly kicked Paul to the ground and punched and kicked him. Baitangshan had seen enough. He reckoned that if they were to continue fighting, Paul would become a cripple. He waved his hand, and vermilion birds strode to Holly's back. Taking advantage of Holly not paying attention, vermilion birds struck the back of Holly's head. Holly, who had already lost his reason due to anger, fainted on the ground. Mika Keto said calmly, "Take him back." "Yes." Suzaku lifted Holly with one hand and carried him to the parking lot of the funeral parlor. She stuffed him into the car. Xiaodong watched as Suzaku's figure disappeared into the distance. She then glanced at Paul, who was lying on the ground covered in blood. She sighed. "Brother Shin, let's send him to the hospital. Someone will take care of him later. He won't die. Don't worry." Baitangshan walked to the front of Su Yunqian's coffin and slowly bowed. He faintly said, "Next time, learn what to do and what not to do." After he returned, Xiaodong and Bailey Han walked to the coffin and bowed. Bailey Han remained silent. Xiaodong pursed her lips and said, "Have a safe journey." Holly was dispirited. He had gone to the hospital where Su Yunqian had gone for a checkup. The doctor had said that she was indeed pregnant. During the operation, she had changed her mind at the last minute. He remembered that she had once asked him, "Do you like children?" She had even said, "How about we have a child?" How had he answered her? He had said that he didn't really like children. He had said that their current situation was not good and that it was not suitable for them to have children. B****. He was really a B****. He had not suspected why she had suddenly mentioned children. Because of his answer, she must have mistakenly thought that he did not want to keep the child and wanted to create a good environment for the child. That was why she had abandoned him and followed Paul. He had actually killed the woman he loved the most and their child with his own hands. Holly screamed in the empty room. He punched the wall viciously with his fists. His hands were bleeding, but he refused to stop. Every day, he held Su Yunqian's urn in his arms and refused to let go. In just 3 days, he had become like a homeless man. He muttered, "Baby, you said that if you wanted to go home, I would send you home." Holly sold all his assets, bought a plane ticket, and flew to China. Come and see, Xinwu 799. Chapter 306. City A, the Su family. The Su family welcomed a special guest. He was a foreigner wearing a black suit. His hair and beard had not been trimmed for a long time. He looked a little down and out. His eyes were empty and his face was expressionless. He looked like a puppet. He was Holly. Sue Boland looked at Holly, who was sitting on the sofa opposite him. He was holding a black box in his arms like it was a treasure. He was holding it tightly and it looked very strange. Sue Boland looked at him inquisitively and said in English, "Sir, you said you are my daughter's husband, but my daughter has passed away." Holly acted as if he did not hear him. His eyes were blank as if he was lost in his memories. He said slowly, "Yun Qian and I met in England. I helped her do a lot of wrong things. After her reputation in City A was ruined, she could not continue living here, so she asked me to help her. We faked her death and she jumped into the sea to fake her death. I helped her create a fake identity and sent her to Korea for plastic surgery." When Sue Boland heard this, he shouted excitedly, "Wait, you said my daughter is not dead? Tell me, where is she now?" Holly did not answer him. Like a robot, he said mechanically, "We did a lot of wrong things again." Later, the matter was exposed. I was disinherited by my uncle and was chased out of the house. My financial situation was very poor. She never complained and always accompanied me. She was pregnant. She thought I did not want this child, so in order to protect the child and to create a good environment for the child, she planned to break up with me and be with another man. His hollow eyes gradually filled with sorrow, and his tone was also filled with sorrow. I thought she had betrayed me. I held a gun and wanted to threaten her to return to my side. I shot at that man, and she stood in front of him. It was me. I killed my wife and child. Sue Boland finally calmed down from the pain of losing his daughter. Who knew that a strange man would come to his door and tell him that his daughter was not dead? His heart was lit with hope, thinking that he could see his daughter again. However, that man quickly shattered his hope. Sue Boland was angry and sad. His finger trembled as he pointed at Holly's nose. His lips trembled, but he did not say a word for a long time. Holly expressionlessly placed the black box on the table. He slowly leaned forward and knelt in front of Sue Boland with his arms on the ground and his head on the floor. "Father-in-law, I'm here today to apologize to you. The first thing I'm sorry about is me. I'm sorry. I killed your daughter and grandson." His forehead hit the floor heavily, and it was already red and swollen. "Yun Qian asked me to apologize to you. I'm sorry that I lied to you and mother and hurt your feelings." He knocked his forehead heavily on the ground again, and the floor was already stained with blood. "The third apology is from Yun Qian and me. We're sorry that we let you and mother-in-law down." His forehead finally hit the floor, and he stayed there for a long time, unwilling to get up. Tears streamed down Sue Boland's face. He held his chest with one hand and covered his eyes with the other. Tears slid down his face and rolled onto his clothes. "Honey, what's going on? Are you okay?" Mrs. Sue came back from outside and saw the unusual scene in the living room. Holly did not look up. He was still kneeling on the ground like a statue. Sue Boland's shoulders trembled, and his right hand was still covering his eyes. No one answered Mrs. Sue's question. She was a bit uneasy. She walked up to Sue Boland and pushed his shoulder. "Honey, what's wrong?" Sue Boland could no longer control himself and finally burst into tears. Mrs. Sue had never seen her husband lose his composure like this. She quickly pulled out a tissue and wiped his tears. She panicked and said, "Honey, what's going on? Say something. Do you want me to die from anxiety?" Sue Boland shook his head. He was so emotional that he could not say a complete sentence. Mrs. Sue was anxious and worried. She was not in the mood to ask why a foreign man was kneeling in front of her husband, patting his back and comforting him softly. After a long time, he finally calmed down. Sue Boland looked at Holly, who was still kneeling in front of him, and waved his hand sadly. You can go. I don't want to see you for the time being. Holly quietly turned to face Mrs. Sue and kowtowed. Mrs. Sue was shocked. She quickly went forward to help him up. What are you doing? Get up. Sue Boland suddenly shouted, don't worry about him. Let him kowtow. Mrs. Sue was so scared that she retracted her hand. She stood there, not knowing what to do. Holly kowtowed 2 more times. When he stood up, his forehead was covered in blood. He looked at the small black box on the table, turned around, and walked to the door. Mrs. Sue called out to his back, Sir, is the wound on your head okay? Holly did not stop. As if he did not hear her question, he walked out of their sight step by step. Honey, what's going on? Mrs. Sue was confused. Sue Boland shook his head. His voice was hoarse. It's nothing. You can go upstairs first. I want to be alone. He slowly closed his eyes. He did not want to say anything more. Mrs. Sue hesitated for a moment. Seeing that her husband seemed tired, she did not ask any more questions. She looked at him worriedly and walked upstairs. After hearing the footsteps disappear, Sue Boland slowly opened his eyes. His gaze was locked on the black box that Holly brought. He had already guessed what was inside. He reached out his trembling hand and took Su Yunqian's urn. He held it tightly in his arms. Murky tears poured out again. He stroked the urn with one hand as if he was stroking his daughter's hair. He choked with sobs. Yunqian, my silly daughter. Why did you choose such a path? Sue Boland could not control his emotions. He punched the back of the chair with his fist. Mrs. Sue did not go far. She was eavesdropping at the corner of the stairs. She heard her husband's suppressed sobs. She quietly poked her head out and saw him holding the black box with tears streaming down his face. She did not understand what was going on. Why was her husband holding the box and calling her daughter's name? Yunqian, how could you bear to let a white-haired person die before a black-haired person? Sue Boland covered his face with one hand and held the urn tightly with the other. The confusion in Mrs. Sue's heart was like a snowball, rolling bigger and bigger. Moreover, her husband's sadness infected her, and she couldn't help but tear up. She quietly went downstairs, walked behind him, and called out, Hubby. Sue Boland trembled. His hands trembled, and the urn almost fell. He hurriedly held it with both hands and raised his teary face to look at his wife. Honey, what's inside? Mrs. Sue was confused when she saw her husband so worried about the black box. Sue Boland wiped the tears from his face and said in a displeased tone, Nothing. Didn't I tell you to go upstairs? Why did you come down again? Honey, are you hiding something from me? Mrs. Sue walked in front of him. Let me see what's inside. Huilan, what's wrong with you today? Hurry up and go upstairs. The more Sue Boland tried to hide it, the more flustered he became. He held the urn even tighter. You're acting strange today too. I'm your wife. What can't you tell me? Mrs. Sue stubbornly held the urn tightly with both hands. As the two argued, the urn fell to the ground with a bang, and the ashes inside spilled all over the floor. Mrs. Sue was stunned. The ashes on the floor looked like, just as a thought popped up in her mind, before she could confirm it, the furious Sue Boland almost subconsciously raised his hand and slapped her across the face. This slap shocked both of them. You hit me, Mrs. Sue covered her face and cried. Sue Boland loved his wife very much and had never hit her before. He panicked and wanted to go forward to check on her injuries, but she pushed him away. She angrily pointed at the floor and roared, Sue Boland, you have to tell me what happened. Otherwise, I'll divorce you. Sue Boland originally wanted to hide it from his wife and son so that they wouldn't be tortured again. However, his wife insisted on getting to the bottom of it. Seeing that he couldn't hide it anymore, he had to tell them the truth. Mrs. Sue couldn't take the blow and fainted on the spot. Sue Boland hurriedly called the servants and rushed her to the hospital. Sue Jean and heard the news and rushed over from the company. He anxiously asked, "Dad, what happened? Why did Mom have a high blood pressure attack?" Sue Boland was already exhausted, so he spilled the beans. Sue Jean and staggered a few steps and sat down on the bench in the hospital corridor. His mind was in a mess and was about to explode. The father and son were silent for a long time. More than an hour later, Mrs. Sue woke up. The first thing she wanted was to see her daughter's ashes. Sue Boland had already ordered the servants to clean up all the ashes in the living room into the urn. At this time, he also asked the servants to send the urn to the hospital. Mrs. Sue hugged the urn and cried bitterly. She almost fainted several times. In the end, Sue Jean and couldn't stand it and asked the doctor to inject her with a tranquilizer. "Dad, how can I find that man?" Sue Jean Ann's face was livid. His eyes were full of hatred and his fists were clenched. He couldn't wait to find Holly and tear him apart. "I don't know." When Holly left, Sue Boland was still sad and didn't have time to ask him. The Sue family thought that they would never see Holly again. Unexpectedly, the next morning, as soon as they opened the door, they saw a blond man kneeling at the door. His head was buried deep and his movements were as humble as the mud. Sue Jean and didn't need to ask to guess who he was. He rushed in front of him and grabbed him by the collar. He dragged him up from the ground and punched him in the face. "You bastard, how dare you show up again? I'm going to kill you." Welfare, Hongcha 866. Chapter 307. Sue Jinan punched and kicked Holly. Holly didn't fight back at all. Like a puppet, he let Sue Jinan drag him up, beat him up, and kick him out. His hair was messy, his face was covered in blood, and his clothes were torn. Enough. Sue Boland finally couldn't stand it anymore and grabbed the furious Sue Jinan. "Dad, don't hold me back. Let me kill him." Sue Jinan was like an angry lion, struggling with all his might. "What can you do if you kill him? Can you save Yin Qian's life? If you kill him, you'll have to go to jail." Sue Boland was not as strong as Sue Jinan. Sweat came out of his forehead as he roared with all his might. "I want him to pay for Yin Qian's life." Sue Jinan had lost his mind. He broke free from his father's hand and was about to go forward again. Mrs. Sue rushed over and hugged Sue Jinan from behind. She cried and said, "Jinan, your father is right. We've already lost Yin Qian. We can't lose you too. Don't hit him. Mom begs you." Sue Jinan's body shook and his movements gradually stopped. Sue Boland glanced at Holly who was lying on the ground motionless. He called a servant and sent him to the hospital. Holly's appearance was like a bomb that blew up the pain hidden deep in the Sue family's heart. It took a long time for them to calm down. 2 days later, Holly's injuries were almost healed. He left the hospital without leaving a word. He returned to Rome. He didn't contact anyone. Holly went to the police station and admitted that he killed his wife. Since Sue Yunqian's body had been cremated, there was no way to collect evidence. Holly didn't have any excuses and even refused to hire a lawyer. The judge easily sentenced him to 10 years in prison. In fact, Tomac already knew the moment Holly stepped into the police station. He didn't stop him, nor did he put any pressure on the police. He let them sentence him to 10 years in prison. On the observation deck of the castle, Tomac and Mika Keto sat in chairs and looked into the distance. Mika Keto pursed her lips and said, "Godfather, have you ever regretted doing this?" Tomac's expression was indifferent, but his eyes were bleak. Of course there is regret. I was too confident and thought that I could see through people's hearts. I was wrong. Su Yunqian's pregnancy is something I never expected. Actually, you don't have to blame yourself. If Paul hadn't concealed Su Yunqian's pregnancy. Tomac raised his hand. Ah Shen, you don't have to say any more. I originally thought that Su Yunqian had no other feelings for Holly other than using her. That was why I asked Paul to get close to her on purpose to break them up. But I didn't expect that they really loved each other deeply. Tomac closed his eyes in pain. If Paul had told him the truth about Su Yunqian's pregnancy, perhaps he would have asked Paul to stop and even help them for the sake of the child. However, he didn't expect Paul to be selfish. He coveted Su Yunqian's beauty and wanted to trick her. Paul was partly responsible for Su Yunqian's death, so when Holly beat him up, Mikakito didn't say anything to stop him. The two of them didn't speak again. After a long silence, Tomac slowly said, I hope Holly can pull himself together soon. Don't you plan to help him? 10 years was a very long time. Tomac sighed. That depends on him. If he doesn't want to come out and wants to be depressed for the rest of his life, no one can help him. During the first 3 days of his sentence, Holly didn't eat or drink. He completely isolated himself from the outside world and refused to be visited by anyone. Holly's indifferent attitude angered the prison bully. When the prison bully asked around, he found out that Holly used to be the young master of a mafia family. His mentality was immediately twisted and he planned to bully Holly until he bowed down to him. So, on the 4th day, the prison bully ordered his subordinates to beat Holly up. Holly didn't fight back, nor did he beg for mercy. He lay on the dirty floor, barely breathing. In a daze, he seemed to see Su Yunqian waving at him. The prison guard whistled as he ran over. The prison bully kicked Holly's back and spat at his face. He taunted, What kind of young master are you? You're still lying in front of me like a dead dog. Useless trash, like you should have been thrown into the trash long ago. You guys, what are you doing? The prison bully ran over and pointed his stun baton at the prison bully and the others. The prison bully raised his hands, and the others followed suit. Officer, we didn't do anything. You guys, if you cause any more trouble, I won't let you off. The prison bully scolded them fiercely. He called his colleagues over and carried Holly out of the cell. Holly's eyes were slightly open. The light on the dark ceiling was dazzling. He saw Su Yunqian getting closer and closer to him. He couldn't help but move closer to her. But every time he took a step forward, she would take a step back. No matter what, he couldn't touch her. He wanted to tell her that he loved her, that he missed her, that he couldn't leave her. But no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't open his mouth. She retreated further and further with a warm smile on her face. She whispered, Holly, no matter what happens, you have to live well. Together with my share, together with my share, together. Her frail figure gradually disappeared, but the words she said remained clearly in his mind. He slowly moved his fingers. In a daze, he saw people in white coats moving in front of him and heard their conversation. All right, it's okay. There's still a heartbeat. The prison bully and his gang are too arrogant. They should be suppressed. Otherwise, someone will die next time. After that, his eyelids became heavier and heavier. He couldn't hold on any longer and fainted. Holly was seriously injured this time. He was bedridden for a week. After his injuries healed, he seemed to have changed into a different person. Although he still didn't speak, he was no longer depressed. He was even more indifferent. His eyes were as cold as a lake, cold and emotionless. He ate seriously, exercised seriously, and studied seriously. After a week, he defeated the prison bully and his gang by himself and became the new prison bully. A month later, Holly wrote 3 letters and sent them to Tomak, Mikakito, and Xiaodong. In the letter to Tomak, he said that after his parents passed away, he respected his uncle as if he was his biological father. He said that he was deeply sorry for letting down his uncle's expectations of him. He said that he would turn over a new leaf and become a better person. After reading the letter, Tomak's eyes were filled with tears. He contacted the prison on the same day, hoping that they could help reduce Holly's sentence. In the letter to Mikakito, there were only 2 short sentences. Oshin, I used to treat you as a brother. Are you still willing to treat me as a brother? Mikakito didn't reply to him. The letter to Xiaodong was the one Holly spent the most time on. He wrote a few sentences, but felt unsatisfied. He tore it up and rewrote it several times before he could finish it. Xia, I hope that after all that has happened, you won't mind me calling you that. The first time I saw you, it was very cold. You were wearing a white cashmere coat and a woolen hat with 2 pom-poms hanging down. You had a bright smile, like the sun shining into the castle. At that time, I thought that I liked this girl with a clean smile, and I wanted to protect her. Later, I wanted too many things, and I felt the pressure from Oshin. He was very outstanding, and compared to him, I was like a piece of trash. I felt that I couldn't raise my head in front of him, and I was getting less and less valued by my uncle. I hated this feeling. 2 years ago, I overheard a conversation between my uncle and Oshin. I knew that my uncle was very dissatisfied with me and wanted to let Oshin take care of the family. I was angry and decided to take back what was mine. Since then, I have done many things to hurt Oshin. I knew that Oshin cared about you, so I didn't hesitate to use you to hurt him. I've long been blinded by my anger and desire to protect you. I've even forgotten the promise I made to protect you. Xia, I don't expect you to forgive me. I just want to tell you that I really feel very guilty. If I had the chance to do it all over again, I would never hurt you again. I promised Xiao Guai that I would go to the hospital to visit her. Now, I have to go back on my word. Please tell her that I love her. I have always wanted to have a daughter as cute as her. Also, I want to apologize to you on behalf of Yunqian. I'm sorry. Holly, thank you. Xiaodong sobbed after reading the letter. Her tears had already soaked the letter. Bailey Han held her tightly in his arms. If you want to see him, we can go visit him. 2 days later, their request for a visit was answered. Holly was willing to see them. They sat across from each other through the glass, each holding a walkie-talkie in their hands. Holly had lost a lot of weight. He looked at Xiaodong with a sincere smile on his lips. Xia, I didn't expect that you would be willing to see me. Xiaodong felt a lump in her throat. She smiled. Holly, Xiao Guai asked me to tell you that Oshin is her number 1 godfather. You are her number 2 godfather. She also said that if you don't want to, she will ignore you. Holly's eyes sparkled. He smiled and said, I'm willing. Although it's only number 2, I'm willing. Xiaodong stared into his eyes and said slowly, Holly, the harm you have caused to our family is a foregone conclusion. I will not forgive you. Holly's expression darkened. He laughed self-deprecatingly. I know. I'm really sorry. So, Xiaodong continued, I want to punish you. I want you to be my older brother for the rest of your life. You want to protect me and love me. Holly was slightly stunned. His eyes quickly filled with surprise. He almost jumped up and said, I accept the punishment. Xiaodong saw that he was as surprised as a child and smiled. Holly, Oshin asked me to tell you something. Holly looked at her nervously. What is it? A powerful novel. Hongcha 866. Chapter 308. Xiaodong said slowly, Brother Shen said that he'll only forgive you this once. Holly was stunned. What does that mean? Xiaodong laughed and scolded, Idiot, it means that he forgives you, but only this once. If there's a next time, he'll chop you to death with a knife. Holly's eyes shone brighter and brighter. He trembled and turned his head to avoid Xiaodong's gaze. Something shiny rolled from his eyes to the ground. Xiaodong pretended not to see it and smiled brightly. Holly, Godfather also asked me to pass a message to you. Perform well and strive for a reduction in your sentence. Come out soon. Our whole family is waiting for you. Holly rubbed his nose and said in a hoarse voice, I will, Xia. Help me take care of Uncle. Okay. Holly performed very well in prison. With Tomac's help, his sentence was reduced 3 times in a row and his sentence was shortened from 10 years to 5 years. During his time in prison, he had been working hard to improve himself. Just as Tomac said, he had been reborn. After he was released from prison, Mikakito handed over the management of the Dark Knight family to him. Holly became the greatest leader of the Italian mafia after Tomac. His only regret was that he was never married. These were all stories for later, so let's not talk about them for now. Before they knew it, it was already February. According to China's tradition, the Spring Festival was coming. Xiao Guai had recovered and Bai Han decided to take his wife and child back to China to reunite with his family. Tomac had already handed over the management of the Dark Knight family to Mikakito. Mikakito had to live in Rome for a while. Bai Han's family said goodbye to Tomac and Mikakito and took a private jet back to a city. On the day they returned, it was very cold. Xiaodong and Xiao Guai had stayed in the warm Rome for too long. When they got off the plane, they were still a little uncomfortable and their cheeks were red from the cold. Bai Han held Xiao Guai tightly in his arms, while Xiaodong held Hai. The family of 4 got into the Rolls-Royce that came to welcome them. The Rolls-Royce drove into Bailey's mansion. The butler and the servant stood in 2 rows at the gate and bowed respectfully. Welcome home, young master and madam. Hearing the uniform greeting, old madam, Bai Jinqiu, and the others had already rushed to the door of the living room. Old madam's eyes were red and she said excitedly, It's good that you're back, it's good that you're back. Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao stood beside old madam with their hands behind their backs like adults. They suppressed their joy and let the adults have the right to speak first. Grandma, Mom, and Bai Han put Xiao Guai on the ground and walked forward to hug old madam. Grandma, we're back. Okay, old madam choked with sobs. Xia, come in. Don't catch a cold. Bai Jinqiu returned to China with her 2 little grandsons after taking care of Xiaodong in Rome. During her time in Rome, the relationship between her mother-in-law and daughter-in-law was very harmonious. She reached out and hugged Hai in Xiaodong's arms. Let me see. Little Hai has grown so big. Great-grandma, don't be sad. We're all back. You should be happy. Xiao Guai raised her pink little face and tugged at old madam's fingers. Yes, Gigai is right. We should be happy. Old madam smiled and wiped the corners of her eyes. She bent down and touched Xiao Guai's soft hair and smiled kindly. We haven't seen each other for more than half a year. Our Xiao Guai has grown prettier. Xiao Guai smiled brightly. Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao ran to her side and grabbed her little hands. Xiao Yi raised her little face and said, Great-grandma, Gigai's hands are so cold. Let's take her to the fireplace to warm her up. Okay, go quickly. Don't freeze. Old madam knew that the 3 little guys must have a lot to talk about, so she smiled and waved her hand. The three little guys were sitting on the thick carpet in front of the fireplace, chatting happily and laughing from time to time. The four adults were sitting on the sofa not far behind them, talking about the recent events at home. The atmosphere was warm and harmonious. "Big brother, sister-in-law, you're finally back." Boo-hoo, knowing that Bailey Han and the others were back, Bailey Jing got off work early. As soon as she stepped into the living room, she ran to Bailey Han to complain. "Xiao Jing, you're already a big girl. Why are you still so unruly?" Bailey Han grabbed Bailey Jing's collar and pulled her off him, moving her to the sofa next to him. Bailey Jing's beautiful face scrunched up and she complained tearfully, "Half a year. It's been more than half a year. Big brother, if you didn't come back, I would have been driven to death by those old men on the board of directors." Bailey Han raised his eyebrows in amusement. "Didn't you do well? I heard from Lucy Heo that you even negotiated a joint venture last month." Bailey Jing raised her finger and complained one by one, "What's the use of just negotiating a joint venture? Those old men on the board of directors always use the excuse that I'm too inexperienced and too young to impeach me and kick me out. Also, they criticize me for coming to work too late and leaving too early. Hey, I'm only 10 minutes late and left 5 minutes early. Is there a need to criticize me like this? No matter what, I'm still the acting CEO. Also, they say that my clothes are too unconventional and not suitable for the company's atmosphere. Look, how am I unconventional? Do they have to force me to dress like a 50-year-old old woman?" She stood up and struck a pose for Bailey Han and Xia Dong to see. Only then did Xia Dong notice that Bailey Jing was wearing a red low-cut woolen sweater, a knee-length black leather skirt, and a pair of 10-centimeter-high leather boots. With her wavy hair, she looked very charming and charming. Bailey Han obviously noticed it too and his face darkened. "You're not allowed to wear clothes with such a low neckline." Bailey Jing snorted. "But everyone says that I look very beautiful dressed like this. Also, I don't have a boss who specifically threw a pen on the ground and asked me to pick it up. Why can't I wear this?" Xia Dong couldn't help but laugh. A boss who threw a pen on the ground and asked his sexy female subordinate to pick it up. She wondered if Bailey Han had done something like this before. She turned to look at Bailey Han and teased, "Hubby, have you ever thrown a pen on the ground and asked your sexy female secretary to pick it up?" Bailey Han's mouth twitched. "Honey, how could I do such a vulgar thing?" "Yes," Xia Dong deliberately dragged out the last word. Her tone sounded like she was questioning his words. Bailey Han's face darkened. "Honey, are you doubting me?" Xia Dong held back her laughter. "I heard that many CEOs like to flirt with their female subordinates, so I was just casually asking. I really didn't mean to doubt you. You're getting more and more ridiculous. What nonsense is in your head?" Bailey Han reached out and knocked her forehead in annoyance. "Hey, isn't that how it's written on TV and in novels? Also, it's written in the newspapers." Xia Dong held her forehead and winked at Bailey Jing. Bailey Jing understood and returned her a playful smile. She picked up her handbag and was ready to slip away. She had already slipped to the staircase and thought she was in a safe zone. Unexpectedly, Bailey Han suddenly said in a deep voice, "Stop right there." Bailey Jing's face was bitter. She turned her head stiffly and laughed dryly. She pointed to the stairs. "Big brother, I won't disturb you flirting with sister-in-law. I'll go upstairs first." Bailey Han's mouth twitched. "Come here." Okay, Bailey Jing knew that her big brother was about to start giving her a political and ideological lesson. She moved in front of him reluctantly. "Don't think that I don't know that your sister-in-law is covering for you." Bailey Han snorted with a sour expression. He pointed to the sofa opposite him. "Sit down." Bailey Jing sat down with a bitter face. Big brother, you just came back and you're already lecturing me. Do you have to be so cruel? Bailey Han said indifferently, who asked you to be so immature? As the CEO, your dressing will affect the company's image and your image in the hearts of the employees. Do you want to become the sexual fantasy of all the male employees? Xia Dong and Bailey Jing almost fell to the ground. How could he say those words with such a calm tone and expression? What? You have nothing to say. Bailey Jing was speechless. Big brother, you've already scared us. Xia Dong coughed and spoke up for Bailey Jing. Hubby, it's actually not as exaggerated as you say. You can't destroy everyone's personality just because it's the workplace. I think that Jing's dressing is quite beautiful. She's already very conscious of her limits. Although the woolen sweater was a low-cut design, it didn't expose any parts of her body that shouldn't be exposed. It only highlighted her exquisite collarbone. The leather skirt was also knee-length, so the matter wasn't as serious as Bailey Han said. Bailey Han stared at Xia Dong with a half-smile. So, you think this is normal? Yes. Xia Dong nodded fearlessly. Very good, my dear wife. You've been stripped of your right to wear clothes of this standard. Bailey Han smiled and patted her head, like a big bad wolf that had succeeded in his evil plan. Xia Dong wanted to cry but had no tears. What was this? Why did she suddenly get the attention of the gunfire? Bailey Jing rushed over and hugged Xia Dong. Sister-in-law, I've implicated you. Xia Dong patted her back and suddenly became smart. It's okay. Actually, your big brother has been planning this for a long time. He just suddenly found an excuse today. Bailey Jing wiped her eyes and pretended to cry. Sister-in-law, I suddenly feel that we're living under the oppression of an old-fashioned old man. It's so stressful and so pitiful. Xia Dong sighed seriously. Xiao Jing, you finally realized this problem. I'm very relieved because I've been oppressed for a long time. You too, don't treat me as if I'm dead. Bailey Han rubbed his throbbing temples. Speaking of being oppressed, why did he feel that he was the one being oppressed? Xia Dong and Bailey Jing covered their mouths and snickered. They had already been stripped of their right to wear low-cut clothes. Weren't they allowed to complain a little? The next day, Bailey Han and his wife took the 4 children to visit their aunt and uncle. Their aunt and uncle were very happy. The whole family ate and chatted happily. They were even more excited than when they were celebrating the new year. Their aunt warmly urged them to stay until they finished dinner. On the way home, Xia Dong was sitting in the front passenger seat with Hai Hai in her arms. She suddenly received a strange text message. Beauty novel, Songshu 566. Chapter 309. Xia Dong heard her phone ring. She opened it and saw a strange text message. I know the whole truth. She frowned and replied, Who are you? After a few seconds, the other party replied, Who I am is not important. What's important is that I know your secret. Xia Dong thought for a moment and typed a line of words on her phone. What are you trying to say? Beep beep. Another text message came in. Xiao Bao is not your son. Xia Dong's fingers suddenly tightened. Her body froze and her expression turned ugly. Because they were driving at night, Bailey Han paid more attention to safety. He focused all his attention on the road ahead and asked casually, Who sent the message? A hint of panic flashed across Xia Dong's eyes. She said, It's Siki. Siki heard that I was back and asked me to meet up. Yeah, you haven't seen each other in a long time. You must have a lot to talk about. Bailey Han smiled. Yeah, I don't know how she's doing now. I'm looking forward to meeting her too. Xia Dong replied to the text message as she spoke. Please don't talk nonsense. Xiao Bao is my son. This time, the other party replied after about 10 minutes. Xiao Bao is your adopted child. Xia Dong nervously hugged Hai Hai tightly. She was worried that Bailey Han would find out that something was wrong, so she turned off her phone and ignored the mysterious stranger. However, the other party's words were like a stone thrown into the calm lake of her heart, causing ripples. Along the way, Xia Dong was restless. She had a bad feeling that her life, which had finally calmed down, was about to be disrupted again. Honey, we're home. Bailey Han opened the car door and took his daughter from her arms. Little Wingzy and his siblings had already jumped out of the back of the car and ran into the villa, chasing after each other. What's wrong? You seem to have something on your mind. Bailey Han glanced at Xia Dong. She lowered her head and looked at the road under her feet seriously. She was so quiet that it was abnormal. No, I was just thinking about where I should meet Siki since it's so cold now. Xia Dong looked thoughtful. Hubby, where do you think we should go? Bailey Han smiled. How about going to the hot springs? Just you and Siki. She had always placed all her focus on the children and rarely had the chance to relax or talk to her friends. He supported her to have her own social circle so that she would not be bored. She smiled and nodded. Sounds good. You're smart. Bailey Han laughed. Go in quickly. It's cold outside. He moved his arm in her direction, and she naturally took his arm. At night, while Bailey Han was taking a shower, Xia Dong turned on her phone. There were no unread messages. She hesitated for a while and deleted all the messages sent by the mysterious stranger. For the next 2 days, she did not receive any more messages from that person. She comforted herself by thinking that maybe it was just a prank. In the cold winter, it was very comfortable to soak in the hot springs. Xia Dong and Siki decided to go to the famous hot springs resort in the suburbs. Before leaving, Xia Dong put on a thick coat and held 2 scarves in her hands. Standing in front of the mirror, she did not know which one to wear. Bailey Han said gently with a smile, "Wear the red one. It matches the color of your coat. It's very beautiful." Xia Dong looked at Bailey Han's figure in the mirror. He crossed his arms and leaned leisurely against the door. There was a gentle smile on his handsome face. The corners of her lips curled up. As she tied the scarf, she said, "Are you really not coming with us?" He approached her and hugged her gently from behind. He bit her earlobe and said softly, "It's rare for you and Siki to meet. Wouldn't I spoil your mood if I went? If you like, we can go to the hot springs together next time and spend a few days comfortably." Okay. She turned around and put her arms around his neck. She kissed him on the lips. "Hubby, you should go to the company today. Xiao Jing is getting calluses on my ears." From the first day Bailey Han returned to China, Bailey Jing wanted to return the Xinghao group to him as soon as possible. However, he refused to take over and continued to live a leisurely life with his wife and children every day. Bailey Jing was so jealous that her eyes turned red. She took the opportunity to whisper in Xia Dong's ear, hoping that she would help her persuade her brother. "You and Xiao Jing are so close that it almost makes me jealous. I'm your husband. Why don't you feel sorry for me?" Bailey Han bit her lips as if punishing her. Xia Dong hugged him tightly. "You're my husband. Of course, I feel sorry for you. However, the Xinghao group is your hard work after all. You can't just ignore it, right?" "Silly, who said I'm ignoring it? Do you think Xiao Jing can reach an agreement with the European side with her fancy moves? Your husband is strategizing and winning from 1,000 miles away." Xia Dong's eyes widened in surprise. Hubby, you're so amazing. Why haven't I seen you work before? Bailey Han leaned against her neck and chuckled. Because you sleep a lot every day. I just make use of the time you sleep. Why did this sentence sound so familiar? Xia Dong blinked and suddenly remembered that a great celebrity once said, "There's no such thing as a genius. I just use the time other people spend drinking coffee on work." Hubby, you've worked hard to support our family, Xia Dong said seriously. Bailey Han rubbed her hair. Since you know I've worked so hard, you have to make it up to me. When you come back tonight, I'm going to eat meat. Hubby, don't suddenly change the topic. Moreover, it suddenly jumped to a restricted topic. Xia Dong puffed up her cheeks and her eyes were wet. She looked pitiful. Bailey Han pinched her cheek. Okay, I promise you. I'll go to the company early so that you can report to Xiao Jing. Are you satisfied? Yes, she nodded and inadvertently glanced at the clock. She exclaimed, "Oh no, it's getting late. I'm going to be late." Don't worry. Yi Siki won't mind. No, I can't. We agreed to meet at the cafe, and then we'll go to the resort together in my car. She'll get anxious if we wait too long. Xia Dong hurriedly picked up his handbag and stuffed his phone, wallet, and other belongings into it. I'll ask Old Chen to drive you there. Before you finish, call Old Chen in advance and ask him to pick you up. Bailey Han grabbed her arm and stopped her from leaving in a hurry. He held her hand and went downstairs. Then he called the chauffeur and gave him a few instructions. Hubby, I'm leaving. Okay, have fun. Call me if anything happens. Bailey Han helped her adjust her scarf and then opened the car door for her. Go in quickly. It's too cold outside. Xia Dong rolled down the window and waved at Bailey Han. Bailey Han casually put his hands in his trouser pockets. He watched the car drive out of the gate of the manor before he turned around and went back. The car stopped outside the cafe. Xia Dong asked Old Chen to wait in the car. She walked into the cafe to look for Yi Siki. When she saw Yi Siki, she was shocked. Yezi, is this still you? Yi Siki stood up and looked at her with a smile. Of course it's me. Come here and let me give you a hug. Xia Dong approached her and gave her a bear hug. She couldn't help but touch her short hair. Why did you cut your hair? You even put on makeup and wore such beautiful clothes. I almost couldn't recognize you. Yi Siki smiled and said, only you can become prettier, but I can't. Xia Dong looked her up and down. Not only did you become prettier, but you also lost a lot of weight. Did you lose weight? The smile on Yi Siki's face faded and there was an imperceptible sadness between her brows. Let's not talk about it. Let's hurry up and go. We can talk about it when we soak in the hot spring. That's true. Anyway, we have a whole day today. Xia Dong smiled and held her hand. Old Chen drove them to the hot spring resort in the suburbs. Bailey Han had already booked a room for them. The waiter led them to change their clothes and they entered a semi-enclosed bathroom. The pool was steaming hot and foggy. There were some grotesquely shaped rockery beside the pool. A screen with classic China landscape painting surrounded the pool. Looking past the screen, they could see lush trees and even hear the chirping of birds. The place was filled with the smell of nature. Xia Dong and Yi Siki soaked in the hot spring. Their pores were relaxed and they sighed in comfort. Xia Dong glanced at Yi Siki, who was leaning against the wall of the pool. Yezi, how have you been for the past 6 months? Yi Siki closed her eyes and said calmly, we might have to get a divorce. Xia Dong's heart thumped. She stared at her face in disbelief. How did this happen? Is there really no turning back? Isiki slowly opened her eyes and smiled faintly. There was an indescribable fatigue in her smile. I'm already tired. Maybe it's better for both of us to break up. Xia Dong moved closer to her. After hesitating for a long time, she asked, Yezi, do you still love him? So what if I do? Love can't withstand so much hurt. Isiki's eyes were covered with a layer of mist. Xia, you don't know how tired I am. I'm really tired, it's okay, it's okay. Xia Dong hugged her. No matter what decision you make, I'll always support you. Don't forget, you still have me. Isiki wiped the corners of her eyes. After a moment, she pushed Xia Dong away. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. We've almost seen each other naked, yet we're still hugging each other. It feels so weird. Xia Dong crossed her arms and put on a defensive expression. Don't you have any ideas about me? I'm already taken. Isiki rolled her eyes. Don't be so disgusting. The two of them teased each other for a while. Isiki glanced at her and said, You've cleared up all the misunderstandings. Bailey Han's family has already accepted you. It's time for the best. Xia Dong leaned back against the smooth wall of the pool. She looked a little absent-minded. I'm a little worried. I hope they don't find out about that. Welfare, Hongcha 866. Chapter 310. Isiki looked puzzled. What else is there? Xia Dong pinched her forehead. Xiao Bao's background. Isiki's expression froze. After a while, she said, There hasn't been any problems in the past 5 years, so there shouldn't be any problems in the future. Her tone was full of uncertainty. Xia Dong looked at the woods beyond the screen. A few days ago, a mysterious person sent me a text. He said that he knew that Xiao Bao was my adopted child. I comforted myself by telling myself that it was just a prank, but she suddenly turned her head and looked at Isiki. She said slowly, Besides the director of the orphanage, only you and brother should know about this. Obviously, you wouldn't play such a prank on me. Isiki frowned. Her voice was hoarse. What else did the mysterious person say? Xia Dong shook her head. After I switched off my phone, he stopped harassing me. I don't know who he is or what he wants to do, but I can't help but feel uneasy. We already have a peaceful life, so I don't want it to be disturbed by that incident. Isiki thought for a moment. Have you ever thought of telling Bailey Han and his family the truth? I have, but I have my concerns. Firstly, I'm worried that I'll hurt Xiao Bao's feelings. Secondly, I'm worried that Bailey's family won't dote on Xiao Bao anymore after they find out the truth. Xia Dong rubbed her temples with her slender fingers. No matter how I think about it, Xiao Bao will be the one who will be hurt the most. This is the outcome I don't want to see. Then what do you plan to do? I'll take it one step at a time. Let's see what the mysterious person wants to do first. He suddenly sent a few text messages and then disappeared. Perhaps he's playing hard to get and wants to force me into a corner. I have a feeling that he will contact me again. You can tell Bailey Han the truth and face this matter together with him. Isiki sank into the bathtub. The warm water flowed over her neck and the mist seemed to fill her eyes. Her eyes were wet. Xia, based on my experience, it's best to be honest with each other. Don't hide anything. Otherwise, when there's a crisis of trust between the two of you, there will be cracks in your relationship. Xia Dong followed her example and sank into the bathtub. Okay, I'll think about how I should tell him. She didn't know how to tell Bailey Han that Xiao Bao wasn't his son. The two of them soaked for a long time. When they came out of the bathtub, it was already afternoon. They changed their clothes, had lunch, and went to the KTV room to karaoke. The two of them hugged each other shoulder to shoulder as the wind howled. They laughed and played to their heart's content until their voices became hoarse. Only then did they collapse on the sofa and burst out laughing, venting all the pressure and worries that had accumulated in their hearts. The two of them walked out of the KTV room with their arms around each other's shoulders. They couldn't contain their excitement as they danced around, attracting a lot of attention. Among them, there was a pair of gays who had their arms around each other's shoulders. They walked towards them about 10 meters away and looked at them passionately as if they had seen their own kind. Xia Dong poked Yi Siki with her finger and laughed sinisterly. Yezi, look at that pair. They're looking at us with such passionate eyes. They must think that we're a couple too. Yi Siki turned to glance at them and commented in a serious tone, the top one is tall and the bottom one is delicate and charming. They're a good match. Xia Dong waved at the two of them. Hey, I wish you both happiness. The bottom was so touched that tears welled up in his eyes. He waved back. I wish you both happiness too. Yi Siki grinned from ear to ear. Thank you. The two of them nodded at each other and walked past each other. The onlookers shook their heads. What a pity. Such a beautiful woman and such a handsome man. How could they be gay? After walking some distance, the two of them hid in the corridor and laughed. Xia Dong's eyes were filled with tears. I haven't been so happy in a long time. I suddenly remembered that when we were in university, we also teased Lin Shihao like this. She stopped talking abruptly. Yezi, I'm sorry, it's okay. Yi Siki patted her on the shoulder and grinned. I'm not a porcelain doll that will break at the slightest touch. Now that you mention it, I remember. At that time, Lin Shihao and I were not in a relationship yet. He bought breakfast for me every day and waited for me to go to class with him. The other girls in the hostel said that Lin Shihao had a crush on me. You came up with this idea, saying that you wanted to provoke him into confessing to me. What happened in the end? Yi Siki stared at Xia Dong with a smirk. Xia Dong touched her nose gloomily. In the end, Lin Shihao said, stop fooling around. I know that there's nothing wrong with your sexual orientation. Speaking of which, it's all your fault for being too stiff. Xia Dong shamelessly pushed all the blame to her. Hey. How is my acting bad? You're the one who watched too many dramas and came up with some sour lines that ruined the whole show, okay? It's all your fault, it's all your fault. The two of them disappeared into the corridor, leaving behind the sound of arguing and laughter. Everyone should have a very important friend in their life. That way, they wouldn't feel lonely when they were hurt and lost. It was past 5 in the afternoon. The sky was very gloomy. It seemed like it was going to snow again. Xia Dong and Yi Siki were wrapped up tightly. When they came out of the resort, Old Chen had already parked the car at the gate. Xia Dong asked Old Chen to send Yi Siki home first. The two of them hugged and said goodbye. Yi Siki was carrying the gift that Xia Dong brought back from Rome. He smiled and waved his hand. Be careful on the road. Say hello to Bailey Han and the little guys for me. By the way, bring Hai out next time. I haven't seen her yet. Xia Dong lowered half the window and smiled. Got it. Hurry up upstairs. Your Nyo-Nyo must be waiting anxiously. Xia Dong walked into the living room and saw Bailey Han sitting by the fireplace with Xiao Guai in his arms. Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao were sitting around them. The three children were listening attentively to Bailey Han's story. The corners of Bailey Han's lips curled up slightly, and his deep and magnetic voice rang out in the spacious living room. Xia Dong approached them and could tell that he was telling the story of the treasured lotus lamp. His voice was deep and slow, and it was especially infectious. No wonder the children were so engrossed in it. Xia Dong didn't want to disturb their warm atmosphere, so she quietly walked to their side and sat on the sofa opposite Bailey Han. Bailey Han looked up at her, and the smile on his lips deepened. He stroked Xiao Guai's hair and said, "Today's story ends here. If you want to know what will happen in the future, listen to the next episode." "Aw, Daddy, continue. I want to hear more, Daddy, you're really keeping me in suspense." "I'm just getting to the best part." The three little guys pouted their little faces. Bailey Han ignored their protests and raised his eyebrows with a smile. "It's almost time for dinner. Let's continue tomorrow." "All right then." The little ones all had helpless expressions on their faces. Xia Dong couldn't help laughing. She joked, "Honey, do you know what I hated the most when I read martial arts novels?" Under the soft light, Bailey Han's handsome face appeared even more charming. There was a smile on his face as he said, "To know what will happen in the future, please listen to the next round." That's right. This sentence always pops up at the most exciting times. She shrugged and looked helpless. "It's just too much of a scam." Xiao Bao shouted, "This time it's not a scam. It's a scam for our son." He glanced at his dear father with resentment. The meaning in his eyes was self-evident. Bailey Yun pursed his thin lips and raised his eyebrows. He looked like he was saying, "Yes, I'm scamming you. What can you do about it?" Xiao Yi silently turned her head. "Daddy, I suspect that we're not your biological children." Xiao Guai blinked her big eyes. "Mommy, aren't we Daddy's biological children?" Xia Dong's heart suddenly tightened. She clenched her fists and her mind went blank for a moment. By the time she reacted, Xiao Bao was already in front of her and staring at her in confusion. "Mom, what's wrong? Why are you in a daze?" "Aw." Xia Dong glanced around and saw that everyone was looking at her with concern, especially Bailey Han. His dark eyes were full of concern. She quickly waved her hand and smiled. "It's nothing. Maybe I've been in the hot spring for too long. My mind isn't very clear." "What did you say just now?" Xiao Bao touched her head and sighed. "Mom, I suspect that you have Alzheimer's disease. You should go to the hospital for a checkup tomorrow." Xia Dong deliberately put on a stern face. She pinched Xiao Bao's pink cheeks with both hands and kneaded them like dough. "Little rascal, how dare you laugh at me?" Xiao Bao's pink face was distorted by the kneading. She cried out with tears in her eyes, "Aw, Dad, save me. Mom is domestic violence, son, I can't help you." Bailey Han coughed and stood firmly on his wife's side. He gave his son a look that said, "Good luck to you." Xiao Yi reached out and covered Xiao Guai's round eyes. She whispered, "It's so violent. It's not suitable for minors to watch." Xiao Guai cried out in surprise. "Hey, Brother Yi, you're underage too. You should cover your eyes too. Hey, you guys. Do you still have any humanity left in you? How could you just stand by and watch as Mom tragically kills me?" Xiao Yi said seriously. "You're wrong. How could we just stand by and watch as Mommy tortures you? We've already closed our eyes." Xiao Bao blinked his big, watery eyes pitifully. "Boo-hoo. I can't live like this anymore. I want to run away from home." All right. I'm just teasing you." Xia Dong held his little face and said with a smile, "Come, let Mommy give you a kiss. You'll get better soon." "No." Xiao Bao turned his head away arrogantly and raised his little chin. "Don't be angry, my good son." Xia Dong rubbed his soft hair. Her eyes were filled with warmth and love, but there was also a trace of undetectable sadness. This was the child she had raised for 5 years. Although he was not her biological child, she treated him like one. If it were not for that text message, she would have almost forgotten that Xiao Bao was a child she adopted from an orphanage. Attention, Hongcha 866. Chapter 311. In the bedroom, the soft light shone down on Xia Dong's body, outlining a warm curve. She sat sideways at the head of the bed with her head slightly lowered. She was holding something in her hand and flipping it slowly. There was a peaceful smile on her face. He couldn't bear to disturb the beautiful peace. Xia Dong felt the mattress beside her sink. Bailey Han's tall and straight body was very close to her, and the faint scent of lemon-scented shower gel wafted into her nose. "Honey, what are you looking at?" He hugged her from the side, and she leaned against his chest. "Do you want to see pictures of Xiao Bao and Xiao Guai when they were young?" She adjusted her position and placed the album on his lap. Bailey Han's gaze fell on the album. The album was very beautifully made, and it was the first time he had seen the pictures inside. There were pictures of the children at various ages. There was a picture of them when they were 6 months old. The 2 pink Xiao Bao babies were placed in a wooden basin, and their 2 pairs of small hands were tightly grasping the sides of the basin. Their 2 pairs of beautiful big eyes were staring in front of them with a surprised expression. Xia Dong pointed at the picture and laughed. "Brother Shen took this picture for them. At that time, I took the rattle and shook it in front of them to attract their attention." There was a picture of Xiao Guai when they were 1 year old. She was wearing a beautiful little dress and cute cat ears on her head. Xiao Bao was wearing a small short-sleeved shirt and shorts, and he was wearing silly brown bear ears on his head. The 2 babies stood facing each other. Xiao Bao was holding a bunch of wild grass flowers in his hand, and he handed it to Xiao Guai. Xiao Guai tilted her head and looked at him with a thoughtful expression, as if she didn't understand why her brother would give her flowers. Xia Dong leaned into Bailey Han's arms and laughed. "Honey, look at them. Aren't they very cute?" Bailey Han stroked her hair, and his eyes were filled with love. "It seems that I have missed a lot of good times." She looked up at him. "It's okay. I have already recorded all the good times for you." She kissed his sharp chin and jumped down from his arms. "Wait for me, I'll get something for you." She wore slippers and hopped into the storage room. Her back was full of energy, like a cheerful little rabbit. Bailey Han raised his eyebrows in amusement and continued to admire the album. The more he looked at the album, the more Mika Keto appeared. Almost half of the photos were taken with him, Xia Dong, and the children. His gaze deepened. Through the photos, he saw the warmth of Mika Keto and Xia Dong. There was something called jealousy brewing in his heart. "Hubby," Xia Dong suddenly ran to his side and hugged his neck from behind. She leaned against his back and held something in her hand in front of him. It was a CD. "This is the video that Brother Shen took for us every year for our children's birthdays. I'll play it for you." She smiled. He pursed his lips and slowly said, "Okay." Xia Dong ran to the TV with the CD and put it on the DVD player. Soon, the video appeared on the LCD wall-mounted TV. There were a total of 4 birthdays and a total of 1.5 hours of editing. It was like a romantic fairy tale. There were cute princesses and princes, beautiful queens, and handsome knights. It was a pity that there was no handsome king. Seeing how close Mika Keto and Xia Dong were, the smile in Bailey Han's eyes faded and the corners of his lips tightened. Xia Dong looked back at the past few years with the video and felt depressed. She didn't know if Xiao Bao would still be willing to be her son after knowing the truth. Bailey Han was so jealous that he didn't notice Xia Dong's abnormal mood. He suddenly reached for the remote control and turned off the TV. He pulled her into his arms, lifted her chin, and kissed her lips. His kiss was fierce and hurried. It was full of aggressiveness, as if he wanted to devour her. He was rarely so rough with her. She couldn't breathe properly and clutched the bathrobe in front of his chest tightly. "Hubby," she murmured uneasily and panted softly. "I'm jealous." His voice was low and hoarse. His lips lingered by her ear and he bit her sensitive earlobe with a little force. She couldn't help but cry out in pain. He stroked her back with both hands and whispered, "In the past 5 years, your relationship with Mikakito was so good that it made me jealous." He bluntly complained about his dissatisfaction. He quickly took off the bathrobe on her and suddenly pressed her under his body. His eyes were terrifyingly dark. She shrank her shoulders. She didn't expect him to suddenly mention Mikakito. She bit her lips in grievance and her eyes were hazy with tears. Her voice was mixed with a trace of gentleness. "I only treated him as an older brother. You said that you would understand. I can't understand it now." Bailey Han forcefully kissed her lips and his hands were on fire all over her body. If it was said that before he saw these photos and videos, he was 100% jealous of Baetang Shin, then now, his jealousy towards him had reached 200%. He hated that he had lost his memory for 5 years and that she had been able to leave him for 5 years. As a result, Mikakito had played an important role in her and their child's lives. He hated that he had been absent from their lives for 5 years. When she needed support and help the most, he couldn't be by her side. Xia Dong hugged this irritable man who seemed to be in puberty. She tried to use her gentleness to defuse his sudden anger. She hooked her arms around his neck and raised her head. Her soft lips kissed his chin and then wandered around his face, the corner of his lips, the high bridge of his nose, his full forehead, and finally the tip of his cold ear. She stuck out the tip of her tongue and gently licked it. His body suddenly trembled. His clear black and white eyes stared into her eyes. The corners of her eyes were full of smiles. She said softly, "Hubby, no matter what happened in the past, the one who is by my side now is you. In the future, only you will be by my side." His eyes were instantly overflowing with color. Under the soft light, his face was unbelievably beautiful. His brows were slightly furrowed and the veins on his forehead popped out. His face was flushed and it seemed that he had been holding back for a long time. His voice had a unique magnetism. "In the future, only me." His tone was firm and domineering. There was no room for discussion. She nodded. "Only you. Wifey, do you still remember what I said today?" His lips curled into a devilish smile. He bent down beside her ear and his hot breath tickled her ear. His hand gently kneaded her soft pink ear. Her cheeks were flushed red. That scorching breath enveloped her and she almost suffocated. Her hands and feet were already unable to exert any strength. Following his movements, her delicate voice died down. "You don't remember." "I think, it wasn't anything good." He suddenly held her butt and slapped it hard. There was a mischievous smile in his voice. "You're so naughty. You actually forgot what I said. It hurts." She furrowed her brows and bit her lips. She looked like she was about to cry and it made his heart skip a beat. He turned her over and his voice was filled with annoyance. "Let me see." 5 clear fingerprints were left on her fair and tender skin. Her skin was delicate to begin with. Even if he held her arm tightly, it would leave a mark, not to mention his heavy slap. He wanted to be naughty, but he didn't expect that he couldn't control his strength. The tips of Bailey Han's ears were slightly red. He was extremely annoyed and bent down to kiss the clear fingerprints. Xia Dong felt something soft land on her butt. It was like a feather moving gently around the area that he had slapped. Then, the tip of a wet tongue licked her skin. She was so shocked that her back arched slightly. "Hubby, don't." She shyly moved her body, but his palm held her down tightly. He kissed her back slowly and a numb feeling instantly rose from the bottom of her feet to the top of her head. Her body trembled violently and her heart felt like it was about to explode. Unknowingly, he was already leaning on her back. His hot lips were against her ear and his voice was filled with unbearable desire. "Wifey, do you remember what I said today?" "Boo-hoo. I remember." She had reason to believe that if she didn't surrender, he would torture her until she knelt down and begged for mercy. "What did I say?" He blew hot air into her ear. Her body trembled and her voice was intermittent. You want to eat meat, that's a good girl." He kissed the tip of her red ear. That night, Bailey Hahn, who had endured for nearly half a year, finally got what he wanted. He ate a lot of meat. After eating the meat, he carried the unconscious Xia Dong into the bathroom and cleaned her up. Then, he held her in his arms and fell into a deep sleep with a satisfied expression on his face. The next day, after Xia Dong woke up, she habitually touched the spot beside her. It was empty and a little cold. Bailey Hahn must have been awake for a long time. Inexplicably, she felt a little disappointed. She hugged the blanket and sat up from the bed. Her legs were sore. Thinking about their wild behavior last night, she couldn't help but blush and her heart beat faster. She covered her head with the blanket tightly. Beep beep. Her phone rang. Xia Dong picked it up from the bedside table. It turned out to be a message from Bailey Hahn. "Little lazy cat, are you awake? I saw that you were sleeping so soundly this morning, so I couldn't bear to wake you up. Gigai, rest at home. I'll be back early tonight." Xia Dong laughed foolishly and replied, "Is it convenient now?" At that moment, Bailey Hahn was sitting in the meeting room facing all kinds of accusations from the group of old men on the board of directors. They blamed him for affecting the company's normal operations for personal matters, for letting the inexperienced Bailey Jing manage the company, and for affecting the company's performance and so on. Don't ask him why he sent a message at this time. It was because he felt that facing this group of old antiques was very boring. Also, his wife should have woken up by now. His phone vibrated with a message notification. Bailey Hahn glanced indifferently at a certain old antique, who was still talking non-stop, and replied calmly, "It's convenient." After replying, he put the phone down on the table and suddenly interrupted old antique. His expression was solemn as he said in a heavy voice, "As far as I know, during the time that Bailey Jing has been managing the company's performance has risen by 3 points. The company's operations in all aspects are going well. If you're willing to look through the information in your hands, you'll understand that what I'm saying is true." There was the sound of awkward coughing in the meeting room, as well as the sound of someone flipping through information and a very discordant ringtone. "Wifey is calling, wifey is calling," the group of people almost banged their heads on the table. Under their strange gazes, Bailey Hahn calmly answered the phone and said softly, "Wait a minute." He raised his head and swept his gaze over the people in the meeting room. His gentle voice instantly turned cold. "Today's meeting is over." He abruptly got up, pushed his chair back, and strode out of the room. His voice was gentle again. "Wifey, have you had breakfast?" He hadn't deliberately lowered his voice, so everyone in the meeting room heard him. Everyone's expressions became very interesting. Lu Zihao very calmly helped his boss tidy up the information on the table. Before he walked out of the meeting room, he gently and kindly reminded everyone who was already petrified, "Everyone, the meeting is over." On the other side, Xia Dong scratched her head with a puzzled expression. "Just now, I think I heard you say something about a meeting. Did I interrupt your meeting?" "No, I have to thank you for saving me from that boring meeting." Bailey Han sat on the sofa with his legs crossed and his body stretched out. He had a cheerful expression on his face and the corners of his lips curled up. Actually, it's nothing. Xia Dong's slender fingers clutched the corner of the blanket as she stammered, it's just that what? Bailey Han asked, the smile on his handsome face growing gentler. Air. Xia Dong felt like she was going to throw caution to the wind. She gritted her teeth and said stiffly, it's just that I'm not used to not seeing you when I wake up in the morning. Oh, he said solemnly, and didn't respond again. Xia Dong was a little discouraged. She didn't seem to be born with the gift of sweet words. Moreover, his reaction was so cold she was angry and was about to hang up when he suddenly raised his eyebrows. That's it. I thought you would say that you missed me and couldn't bear to part with me. Her eyes widened. After a while, she said softly, just take it that I meant it. How can I take it that way? Since you missed me, then tell me. I want to hear it from you personally. Bailey Han's gentle voice had a hint of bewitchment. All right, it wasn't like she hadn't said it before. She would just tell him. Fortunately, he couldn't see her blushing face. She was relieved. She lay on the bed and rolled around. Hubby, I missed you. I missed you too. His eyes were full of smiles. He seemed to have thought of something as his lips curled into a mischievous smile. There's an ointment in the drawer on the right. What is it for? The wound on your butt. His words were concise, but she blushed. Her mind couldn't help but think of some scenes that made her blush and her heart race. She knocked on her forehead to stop herself from letting her imagination run wild. She quickly found an excuse to hang up the phone. I'm hungry. I'm going to eat first. Bye-bye. He chuckled. Okay. Xia Dong came out of the bathroom after washing up. When she heard the sound of a message on her phone, she thought it was from Bailey Han again. She quickly took out her phone to check, but she didn't expect to see a message from a stranger. The content of the message made her face turn pale. I'm Xiao Bao's biological mother. Awesome novel, Hongcha 866. Chapter 312. The content of the message made her face turn pale. I'm Xiao Bao's biological mother. Xia Dong bit her lip and hesitated for a while. Finally, with trembling fingers, she dialed the unknown number. Beep beep. The sound of waiting for the call to be picked up came from the phone. She clutched the phone tightly, her heart pounding like a drum. She was so nervous that her back was sweating. Click, the call was rejected. Xia Dong sat on the fabric sofa dejectedly. She didn't know what the other party wanted. She was typing a message, but before she could choose to send it, the other party had already sent a message. After the spring festival, I'm going back to my son. It seemed that the other party didn't want to talk to her directly and only wanted to communicate through text messages. Xia Dong punched the sofa angrily, deleted the word she had already typed, and typed a new message. I want to meet you. After waiting for about 2 minutes, the other party replied. I'm not in China right now. Be prepared. After the spring festival, I'm going to take my son back. Xia Dong could no longer control her anger and quickly typed a message. What is this? You were the one who abandoned Xiao Bao back then, and now you want to take him back. Have you considered Xiao Bao's feelings? 10 minutes, half an hour, there was still no reply. Xia Dong called again, but the other party had already turned off the phone. I'm so angry. Xia Dong punched the sofa fiercely. She still couldn't vent her anger, so she used the cushion as a punching bag and punched it to vent her anger. Xia Dong thought for a long time and felt that she should first confirm whether the other party was Xiao Bao's biological mother. She dug out the phone number of the orphanage in Japan from a secret notebook. After she dialed an international number, she communicated with the orphanage director in Japanese for a long time. About a week ago, a Japanese woman came to our orphanage, saying that she was looking for her lost child. I took out all the photos of the orphans from the past 5 years. The woman looked at them for a long time and finally focused on Xiao Bao. She asked a lot of questions about Xiao Bao. Xia Dong gritted her teeth and asked, "Does that woman have any evidence to prove that she's Xiao Bao's biological mother?" The director said, "I looked at the birth certificate in her hand at that time, and it confirmed that she had given birth to a child." She also said that her son had a small red mole on his buttocks. Xia Dong's heart sank. There was indeed a red mole on Xiao Bao's butt. It seemed that the woman who had inquired about him in the orphanage was his biological mother. At that time, I gave that woman your phone number and planned to tell you about this matter, but I called your phone, and it was turned off. The director's tone was apologetic. "I'm very sorry if this matter has caused you any trouble." Xia Dong rubbed her eyebrows helplessly. "I happened to be in Rome during that period of time, and I was using an overseas SIM card, so I missed your call. Can you tell me her name?" "Her name is Suzuki Sakura. I don't know much about other information." "Okay. Thank you, Director." After ending the call, Xia Dong's heart was in a mess. She called Suzuki Sakura, but her phone was still turned off. Ever since she revealed her purpose, she seemed to have disappeared from the face of the earth and would only appear after the Spring Festival. There was a knock on the door. Xia Dong took a deep breath and then slowly exhaled. She patted her cheeks and jumped off the sofa to open the door. "Mommy." Xiao Guai stood at the door with a smile. "Gigai, what's wrong?" Xia Dong bent down to pick up her daughter and kissed her pink cheeks. "Mommy, it's already past 10. I saw that you hadn't come downstairs, so I thought you were sick, so I came up to see you." Xia Dong smiled. "Mommy is fine. She just has something to do upstairs. Come, let's go downstairs." She carried her daughter downstairs and found that it was very quiet. She was a little curious. "Gigai, where are the others?" Xiao Guai played with her chubby little fingers and said softly, "Sister Hai Hai is sleeping. Great-grandma and great-grandpa are in the study. Grandpa and Daddy went to work. Aunt Jing also went to work. Grandma has a date with the other grandmas, so she went out to play. Brother and Brother Yi are building a snowman outside." Xia Dong couldn't help but laugh. She rubbed her beautiful short hair. "Gigai is like a loudspeaker, reporting everyone's situation." Xiao Guai blinked her big bright eyes and giggled. "The loudspeaker is very loud, and my voice is very gentle. The boys in the kindergarten all like my voice. You're so smug, little rascal." Xia Dong pinched her cute little nose. "Let's go. Let's go see your 2 little brothers." Before the 2 of them went out, they wrapped themselves in thick down jackets. Xia Dong put a little down hat and a red scarf on Xiao Guai. Then she held her little hand and walked to the back garden where her 2 sons were building snowmen. It snowed heavily last night, and the whole world was dyed white. The trees were covered in white coats, and the lawn was covered with snow-white blankets. The diligent servants had already cleared the snow on the road, making it very convenient to walk. Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao were building snowmen on the snow-covered lawn. The 2 little guys didn't wear down jackets, only thick sweater jackets. Their handsome little faces were red, and their little noses were also red. They were as cute as carrots. They waved little snow shovels and had already built a chubby snowman. It was about 1 meter tall, with a round head and a thick body. It didn't have any facial features or hands yet. "Mommy, I want to play too," Xiao Guai shook Xia Dong's arm. "Okay, go ahead." Xiaodong gently patted her little head. The little girl ran towards her two brothers with a smile. Xiao Yi looked up and grinned, revealing her snow-white teeth. "Mommy, come over and play with us too." Xiao Bao chuckled. "Xiao Yi, you don't know. Mommy is most afraid of the cold. She won't come over." "Who said I won't come over? Don't look down on me." Xiaodong snorted and walked over to her two sons through the thick snow. Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao covered their mouths and snickered. Xiao Guai tilted her head and looked at the snowman for a while. She frowned slightly and said, "The snowman doesn't have a nose, eyes, or mouth. What are you going to use to replace them?" "Gigai, use this as the eyes and mouth." Xiao Yi slowly took out something from his trouser pocket and extended his hand in front of Xiao Guai. "Okay." Xiao Guai nodded happily and took two black buttons from his hand. "I'm going to put on the snowman's eyes." She tiptoed, picked up a button, and pressed it on the snowman's face. Button a little to the left, a little lower, the children happily dressed the snowman. Xiaodong's lips curled up. She walked not far away, broke off two branches from a tree, and stuck them on both sides of the snowman's body. She raised her eyebrows proudly. "Use this as the snowman's arms. Does it look good?" Xiao Bao stared at the hat on her head. His big eyes blinked quickly and he revealed a cute smile. "Mommy, are you cold?" Xiaodong shook her head. "I'm not cold." He pointed at the hat on her head and continued to blink cutely. "Then contribute your hat to the snowman." "Aha, I thought you cared about me." Xiaodong grumbled, but she still willingly contributed the hat and put it on the snowman's head. "I'm still missing a scarf." Xiao Bao continued to blink. "Okay, contribute it all." Xiaodong took off the scarf and tied it around the snowman's neck. "Wow, it's so beautiful." Xiao Guai screamed and clapped. "I'm still missing a nose." Xiao Yi rubbed his chin. He took out a finger-thick carrot from his other trouser pocket and pressed it between the snowman's eyes and mouth. "It's perfect now." He grinned. "Wait a minute, I want to take a photo as a souvenir." Xiaodong had an idea. She quickly ran upstairs to get the camera. When she ran to the door of the living room, the butler appeared with a smile and a camera. "Young madam, I'll take a photo for you." "Okay, thank you." The mother and children made various poses around the snowman, and the old butler kept pressing the shutter to record their laughter and laughter. "Let's have a snowball fight." As soon as Xiao Bao finished speaking, a snowball flew at his head. He reflexively closed his eyes, and the snowball rolled down his cheek with a plop sound. Broken snow stained his face. "Ha ha ha." The culprit, Xiao Yi, held his stomach and laughed loudly. "Wah, I want revenge." Xiao Bao angrily wiped the broken snow off his face. He quickly grabbed a handful of snow from the ground, rolled it into a ball, and threw it at Xiao Yi. Xiao Yi nimbly hid behind Xiaodong, and the snowball hit Xiaodong's abdomen. "Xiao Bao, how dare you hit me? I want revenge too." Xiaodong pretended to be angry. She bent down and made a snowball from the ground. Just as she was about to attack Xiao Bao, a snowball hit her face. She wiped her face and looked at the culprit, Xiao Guai. She smiled and stuck out her tongue. "Mommy, I didn't do it on purpose." "Wah, you two bad children are bullying me." Xiaodong squatted on the ground shamelessly. She lowered her head and rubbed her eyes with the back of her left hand as if she was crying sadly. Xiao Guai felt guilty and walked over with his short legs. "Mommy, don't be angry." "Xiao Guai, don't be fooled. Mom must be playing tricks." Xiao Bao was far away from Xiao Guai. He wanted to stop her, but it was too late. Ah, sure enough, Xiao Bao was right. Xiao Guai had a snowball on her face. She pouted her pink lips and looked helpless. She was so pitiful. Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao ran toward Xiao Guai. Mommy, you're too cunning. Xiao Yi wiped the snow off Xiao Guai's face with a helpless expression. All's fair in war. Xia Dong shamelessly said without the slightest bit of guilt. Let's unite and deal with Mommy together. Xiao Bao's suggestion was immediately approved by the other two little rascals. The three children aimed the snowballs in their hands at Xia Dong. Wah! You guys are going too far. Xia Dong yelled as he tried to fend off the attacks. Hee, all's fair in war. The three little rascals said in unison, using her words against her. Their laughter echoed in the cold air for a long time. Welfare, Songshu 566. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.